After everything felt wide open for the first 6 weeks, the Kansas City Chiefs might be telling us that this is still their league. The Seahawks and Bucks keep getting big wins, and we have our first head coach firing to talk about today. Welcome to the Week 6 review show of the Fully Inflated Football Podcast.
All we've got to do now is to start pumping.
All right, we have 15 excellent NFL games to react to here this week. As we get started, if you're watching this one on YouTube, if you could do me a huge favor, just hit that like button down below. It really does help me out. And if you're maybe waiting to take off on the airplane or sitting on the exercise bike, or maybe I caught you on the toilet, if you could take a minute to leave a review for the show as well, that would be awesome. It is the best way to kind of grow the podcast out there as well. But without further ado, let's get started reviewing all of these games from NFL Week 6. And I want to start with the Sunday night battle, the much anticipated battle between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Detroit Lions. The Chiefs get their first of what they're hoping will be many statement wins on the season. They win this one 30-17, really outpacing the Lions as this one went on. And it just feels like Patrick Mahomes and the swagger of the Chiefs offense at large is back. And especially with Mahomes, it's not necessarily like a stats thing or an EPA per play or a PFF grade or anything like that. I'm sure they're all pretty good, but this is much more about the eye test and the feeling watching the Kansas City Chiefs that we've kind of felt it for a few weeks now that this offense and Mahomes is just kind of back. He's got that twinkle in his eye. He feels like that fire-breathing dragon that just as soon as you feel like you've got him on the ropes, he's going to find a play, whether it's dropping back and killing you from the pocket or doing what he does so well, managing the rush, stepping up, extending plays with his legs, finding that throw on the run, or what he's been doing so well this year, beating with his legs as a scrambler as well. And this game, it wasn't necessarily a continuation of them able to kind of launch the deep ball. That's been a rising narrative this year, is they're actually pushing the ball downfield and having success doing it, especially with someone like Tyquan Thornton. They're hoping Xavier Worthy getting healthier and healthier is going to continue to add to that. But in this one, it was really him just being surgical over the middle of the field. He was 5 for 6 on 10-plus yard throws in this game for 93 yards. They actually only attempted one pass in this game of 20-plus yards, and it fell incomplete. But him just seeing that part of the field really open up, and then, again, on top of all of the improvisational stuff that just makes him and this offense so challenging to stop. And I think this refound confidence, obviously a big part of it is Mahomes just gaining that confidence and playing well, but I think it's a direct correlation to the fact that they have playmakers playing at a level that they haven't had in Kansas City for multiple years now. And the first of which is Travis Kelce. I mean, Travis Kelce has had pretty quiet regular seasons for the most part. He's had some big games, some big moments where he's had to step up in the regular season. But for the most part, it feels like he's on the back end, on the 17th or 18th hole of the course, if you will. And he's been kind of saving his energy for the playoffs. Well, this year he just does look rejuvenated, and he's creating better separation. He's been much better after the catch, certainly, than what we saw last year. So that's obviously a big part of it. But you've got some of these speedy receivers out there. 3 of them, really. I mean, Tyquan Thornton was quiet in this game, but this was a much bigger Hollywood Brown game. Xavier Worthy, still kind of battling through trying to get fully healthy, but they clearly have the playmaking juice to complement what Mahomes does so well, and it's all coming together really well right now. And this is before Rashee Rice returns this upcoming week, so that's even more scary for everybody else. But it feels like the Kansas City Chiefs are back, and the Lions were victim of that this week. And what that means to me is just not having this crazy tight margin for error. They've been this ball control offense that is willing to just lean on their defense in so many of these tight games. And they've had success with it. Obviously, Mahomes is so good in crunch time and riding that thin line, that thin margin for error, and making the big play when it's needed down the stretch. And we've talked about in recent seasons why that's been such a core reason for why they've still been able to win so many football games. But now it's like they don't have to have this amazing defense. I'm going to talk about their defense from this game. They played well, but they don't have to be perfect defensively against great teams to win. They can have a Mahomes mistake that he can make up for in other ways in other points in the game. So it's a much more explosive, potent version of this Chiefs team. But this was a big night for the Chiefs defense as well. I mean, they absolutely showed up and really put the clamps on Detroit in a lot of spots in this game. They do hold the Lions to 17 points. A big part of that was some mistakes by the Lions. They get a motion penalty with the Jared Goff the pass to Jared Goff for the touchdown came off the board. And there was a big fourth down when the Lions were driving when Amon-Ra couldn't come down with the catch. So some uncharacteristic mistakes contributed to it only being 17 points for the Lions. But I think the Chiefs would have won this game either way. And anytime you can hold the Lions under 30, you're doing a pretty good job. That's just how good the Lions offense is. And this game to me was especially a reminder that Steve Spagnuolo, not that we necessarily needed this reminder, but it's always good to see, regardless. But this was another game that really reminded us just how good Spags is as a defensive coordinator at isolating that one thing that you do that he doesn't want to allow to kill him and his defense. And in this one, he looked at the Lions' run game and said, we're gonna commit to slowing down the run and forcing Jared Goff to keep pace with Patrick Mahomes in this game. And it was a brilliant game plan. They came out and played literally 50% of their snaps were in a base defense with 7 men at the line of scrimmage. For the Chiefs, that means a 4-3 base defense and letting a guy like Leo Chanel thrive that sometimes gets a more limited snap count coming off the field in a lot of their nickel defenses. Not in this one. Chanel, Bolton, and Drew Tranquill all played well at the second level. I think the Chiefs D line lived up to the test for the most part. And the Lions had just 91 yards on 22 carries. That's 4.1 yards per attempt. That's outstanding run defense, generally speaking, but against the Lions especially, that is not easy to do. And then as far as their pass defense, I look more at Chris Jones stepping up in this one. Really, in those key spots, he showed up with those big pressures. He had 4 big pressures in this game, took advantage of what is the weakness in the Lions' offense, which is going to be the pass protection of that interior offensive line with Glasgow and the 2 essentially rookies at both guard spots. And Chris Jones moved around and made Jared Goff uncomfortable to get some stops when they needed it. So a big day for the Chiefs defense as well. I will say on more of a negative note, there were still points in this game. Like I said, the Lions were moving the ball. They scored a lot less than you would expect based on their total yardage. There were still certainly some moments where you wished that this Chiefs defense had somebody else other than Chris Jones, because as an interior player, it is much easier for the Lions to just double team him and take him away from a lot of snaps. I mean, the Lions were out there with Dan Skipper at left tackle, and we were heading into the fourth quarter, and Chris Collinsworth pointed out in this game that he hasn't allowed a single pressure in this game. And you're looking at the Chiefs in that matchup, like Mike Dana and Charles Omenihu and all of their other edge 2 options. And you do wish you either found a better way to get Karlaftis to exploit a matchup like that, or that they had someone else to step up. And that's definitely the core weakness in the Chiefs defense. And that goes back to the Jags game as well, is when Chris Jones isn't dominating, and fortunately down the stretch and in those key moments, they got the plays they needed from Chris Jones. But we've seen games too where teams are able to neutralize Chris Jones and really put together the right game plan to double team him and take him away. Do they have that other guy that can get that core pressure and get the opposing offense off the field? There were some times in this game where you still felt that as a weakness. So I guess that's a little bit of hopium for the rest of the league, with the Chiefs looking as good as they look, with Rashee Rice coming back next week. A little bit of hope is that this defense is not impenetrable for sure. But as for the Detroit Lions, I'm not overly worried about them from this game. I'm just not, like I mentioned, this ultimately came down to, number one, I think this was just the Chiefs' night. The Chiefs played outstanding football. We know what they're capable of when they're on. And, they were playing to avoid a 2-4 start. This game was huge for the Chiefs to get to 3-3 instead of 2-4, especially as they're trying to keep pace in the AFC West. So I do think ultimately in Arrowhead on Sunday Night Football, this just was the Chiefs' night. But the Lions also just had some uncharacteristic mistakes that put them in a spot where they couldn't keep pace. And I mentioned him. It was the motion penalty that took the Jared Goff touchdown off the board on the opening drive that could have changed the entire script of this game. And then the Amon-Ra St. Brown drop on fourth down, that he just never makes that mistake, and he did in this spot. So I think this just was the Chiefs' night. I'm not overly worried about the Lions, but just like I said with the Chiefs, and kind of a theme with this week, whether it's the power rankings video or as I think I'll highlight in spots throughout this show, the top of the NFL is still wide open. Even if I did rank the Chiefs number one this week, and it's a little bit dejecting for fan bases to know that the Chiefs are just the boogeyman once again, but they are still vulnerable, as we saw last week against the Jags. But the point I'm trying to make is all of these teams at the top are super close, and they all have specific weaknesses, and it's just very fun. Like, it's turning into, I think, a very matchup based season where all these teams have specific weaknesses, and if you're able to shelter your own weaknesses and take advantage of your opponents, any of these top teams can beat anyone and ultimately could win the Super Bowl this season. But with Detroit, like in this game, you definitely felt what their weaknesses were on full display. And number one, you're hoping will improve, but it's the injuries at cornerback. I don't even think when they are fully healthy, they're invulnerable at cornerback. Like, they're out Terrion Arnold in this game. I don't know if Terrion Arnold would have made too much of a difference in this one based on what we've seen from him so far in his young career. But DJ Reed, certainly a big one. They miss him. They're hoping to get him back relatively soon. But yeah, the Chiefs obviously had the advantage in this one going against, like fourth, fifth, sixth string corners. No team can really survive that. But the Lions' defensive line as well also felt like a weakness in this game. They got one pressure in this game from non-Aiden Hutchinson defensive linemen. They had other pressures off of blitzers, but nobody else was winning other than Aiden Hutchinson. And that's where you look at this team as well with injuries and say they need Aleem McNeil back. And they need Aleem McNeil back, the one that last year really stepped up for about a half of the season when Aiden Hutchinson went down and was able to help support an adequate pass rush with really him alone. And Dan Campbell said on his radio spot this morning that barring a setback, Aleem McNeil is going to be back this week. And that's just huge for Detroit to have anybody else on that defensive line. I mean, Al-Qadim Muhammad has been their second best pass rusher this year, I think. And that's just crazy. I do question why they didn't want to bring Zadarius Smith back, or even last year why they gave up so much on James Houston, who's looking good in Dallas this year. They just entirely ignored that edge 2 spot. And I know Zach Pascal's been hurt as well. Maybe they were counting on a big step from him, but it is at least a question to beg of do they have enough pass rushers to truly impact a high potency passing game like this? They're hoping Aleem McNeil coming back can be that for them. So a lot of the Lions' issues right now are just injuries on defense, and there's some hope on the horizon there for them. So that's a big reason why I'm not overly worried about the Lions. But I do think as far as their offense is concerned, the interior of the offensive line is still an area that you can attack, at least in the passing game. And that's a spot where, unless these young guys just develop tremendously for the remainder of the season, I do think that's an area that you can take advantage against Detroit. Mahogany and the rookie Ratledge, they've been really good as run blockers this year, so that's a big green light for them. But you have been able to beat them in pass protection, and it's shown up as an issue now in their 2 losses against 2 good teams in Kansas City and Green Bay. So while I think the defense will get better as the season goes on, I think offensively there's at least one weakness that you could have spotted heading into the year that unfortunately, I think for Detroit, you still have to mitigate that, and hopefully, reducing your margin for error with better defense will be a good pathway to do that. But it's going to be really fun to see both these teams moving forward. I think both these teams are only getting better as we move forward, and they're both in really tight division races. Neither of these teams are actually in first place in their division right now, though I would say they are likely the best two teams in their division at this point in time. So a fantastic Sunday night matchup that did not disappoint. Excellent football game. Chiefs just kind of pulled away in the end. And next up, I'm going to talk about the Monday night doubleheader, starting with the Bills-Falcons game. But before I do that, I want to thank the sponsor for today's show, Underdog Fantasy. You guys, now is the perfect time to get started on Underdog with their Boost-tober promotions. You can get unlimited 30% profit boost tokens on all of your pick'em lineups. Get you even higher payouts with their pick'em contests, which are a ton of fun, where you're selecting higher or lower on player stats. These can be low-level entries that have large payout options, but keep you invested in any given football game. I am super thankful for Underdog Fantasy. It's a ton of fun to play and a chance at winning some money. So if you want to get in on Boosttober, we're only halfway through the month. There's still plenty of time. You can sign up using code TFG. You'll support my channel and this podcast in the process as well. And Underdog also right now has ramped up their sign-on bonus with code TFG. When you play just $5, they will give you a bonus match of $100. It's definitely the best sign-up promo I've seen from them, and they haven't guaranteed that that's here to stay. So now is really the best time to sign up. Again, that is code TFG at Underdog. Good luck, and please do play responsibly. All right, let's go to the first of an epic Monday night doubleheader down in Atlanta, where the Atlanta Falcons, a statement victory for the second week in a row. An upstart young team with a year two quarterback gets a benchmark victory against Sean McDermott's Buffalo Bills. But definitely got to start with the Atlanta Falcons. And it's time for me to apologize to Falcons fans and Raheem Morris. For anyone that watched my deep dive series, I was pretty pessimistic about really Raheem Morris as a head coach. I liked a lot of everything going on in Atlanta with the construction of the offense, and I even enjoyed like the trade up in the draft in a way that not a lot of people, assessed that move positively, reflecting on the draft. But I just question if Raheem Morris was good enough to be an NFL head coach. Someone that was hired as a defensive mind that witnessed a horrible defense last year. They immediately fire the defensive coordinator, and Falcons fans were all over my comment section when I broke that all down, basically saying, no, Jimmy Lake really was that bad. Raheem Morris knows what he's doing, and things are going to be so much better with Jeff Ulbrich coming in. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I do think this is the defense built in Raheem Morris's image. They basically run an identical system to what the LA Rams run, following suit with what Raheem did with them before that. That system really doesn't have a whole lot to do with the likes of Jimmy Lake and even Jeff Ulbrich. And I don't know. I just didn't think that a change in defensive coordinator would really fix this thing. And it has meant everything for the Atlanta Falcons. They are actually number one in defensive DVOA right now. Now, do I think they are the best defense in the NFL? No, but the results absolutely speak for themselves. They've had two big wins now on primetime football against a couple of good teams in Minnesota and now especially the Buffalo Bills on the heels of their defense. And this was the first time in a long time that I've seen Josh Allen just look as uncomfortable as he was. And it really was, to me, all about what Atlanta was doing to fluster him. I think you got to go back to week 5 last year in Houston when Josh Allen laid a stinker like this. And we've gotten so used to Josh Allen dominating whatever defense he goes against, finding whatever answer to the test is there to be found. He didn't find any answers in this one. And it just was a different version of Josh Allen. And I really think Raheem Morris and Jeff Ulbrich deserve the credit in this one, because to me, it wasn't really a night where I watched this Falcons defense and said, they got standout performances from key defensive players. Like, yeah, across the board, these guys played good team defense, but this was much more about what they were doing schematically to make Josh Allen uncomfortable. And it was blitzing in this one. 50% of their plays, they blitzed this Bills offense. And to do that while also plugging up all of their quick, easy outlets, because we've talked so much about this Bills offense. That's what they are, right? It's a bunch of slot wide receivers. It's Josh Allen evolving into this surgeon that can find those quick openings and get the ball out and beat the blitz. Not in this one. They had no answers. The coverage on the back end was doing a good job. So maybe it's those guys that deserve the most credit. But the blitzing schemes coming from different directions, the way that they loop and twist and just threw the whole kitchen sink at this offense and this offensive line that's a very experienced group, it was just so impressive. And I couldn't have been more wrong about the just defensive coaching infrastructure in Atlanta being good enough. And that's where it gets really exciting, because when you have the floor of a good coaching staff, that's when you can really start to develop players and stack good performances on top of each other and really start to trust this defense. And like I said, like in this game, there wasn't really an individual player that I looked to and was like, oh my God, he went off. Like, I think Jalen Walker within these blitz schemes with his athleticism shined through. I think the scattered talent in the secondary stepped up in this one. I wouldn't look at this game and say Jesse Bates was a superstar, or even that my guy Xavier Watts was all that good in this game. I don't think AJ Terrell necessarily stood out to me in this one. I think it was more of just a collective team effort in this one, but I do think they have the foundations with talent on the back end. I like this linebacking group as an idea with Diablo and I almost said Nate Landman. No, he went to the Rams, but goodness, number 55, Ellis, and even Troy Anderson getting back healthy, and they have a bunch of bodies, athletic bodies on this D line that we can start to see more and more from. So I'm excited to see what's yet to come from this Atlanta defense that is just playing so well. And it's also exciting too, because I don't think anyone was really worried about the offense for the Falcons coming into the year. And they've held up their own end of the bargain for the most part. I don't think Michael Penix is having this surge of a year two, into the list of NFL great quarterbacks or anything like that. In fact, in this game, kind of like that Monday night game against the Vikings, right? Or no, that was Sunday night. But anyway, kind of like that game, the story wasn't really Michael Penix, and I think Penix did what was asked of him in this game. But this was really about Bijan being the second coming of LaDainian Tomlinson, which, proud to say, that was my pro comp on him, which I don't go throwing around LaDainian Tomlinson level comps on a lot of players, but he has absolutely reached that level. He has taken the crown as the best running back in the league, I think. We've seen that get passed year to year, and I think Bijan has taken that this year. And I also think Zach Robinson, the offensive coordinator, is doing a really good job and getting extremely creative with this offense. So they're doing something I've never seen before. They are taking Charlie Warner, who is he's their main tight end. I know Kyle Pitts, but Kyle Pitts is more of a big slot wide receiver, or just a big wide receiver. They'll play him outside as well, who occasionally puts his hand in the dirt and plays tight end. Charlie Warner is really their actual starting tight end, but what they're doing with him is really unique. They're running this kind of spread style offense that's based out of 12 personnel on paper with 2 listed tight ends out there. But in a large chunk of their snaps, actually 18 times in this game, so about a quarter of their snaps, he is lining up as a running back, literally right next to Michael Penix in the backfield. And then there's another 11 snaps where he's getting listed fullback snaps. So about half of their snaps offensively, Charlie Warner is not just out there, but he's out there as a member of the backfield. And especially those snaps where he's lining up as a running back, that's where it's just, I've never seen that. And it's not that they're necessarily giving him carries there, though they could theoretically do that. what that allows you to do is, most people understand this, but I'll repeat this just in case people aren't aware. How it works in the NFL is teams on defense will match their defensive personnel based on what they see in the huddle. So when Atlanta comes out with Charlie Warner and Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson, they're expecting probably 12 personnel, which is typically going to be like under center, expecting that almost like Shanahan based, like outside zone, play action style offense. Well, what Zach Robinson's doing here is showing that look in the huddle, forcing teams to kind of decide how they want to defend it. And in this game, the Bills mostly matched with nickel. That's what Sean McDermott does. We can get into whether that was a good idea or not, but it does put any defense into a really tough, debacle. Do we match this with our nickel-based defense, knowing that they keep showing these kind of spread looks out of this personnel, or do we have to anticipate the possibility that this could be a heavy run package and put an extra linebacker or a defensive lineman out there? So it puts teams into this tough bind, but the Falcons have this unique blend of personnel offensively, and this package allows them to really tap into it, because Bijan Robinson is like the best running back in the NFL, but he's the only guy like since Christian McCaffrey that actually feels like he can line up as a slot wide receiver and run routes and make tough catches, and you'd feel like you're not really missing a beat from what you would get from, let's just say, Ray McLeod, right? Their actual slot wide receiver. And it's not a huge surprise. Like Texas did that with Bijan. He's just that good of a football player. But they put Bijan out as a wide receiver, and then Kyle Pitts steps out as a wide receiver, or Kyle Pitts can line up as a tight end in that formation, or kind of flexed in as a kind of bunch big slot wide receiver where he's probably at his best. And then to keep defenses even further honest, like they're not just coming out and throwing the ball from that formation. They are certainly doing that, but what they are able to do is motion Bijan pre-snap and make him still a rushing threat. And that's just super creative. Like you can still run wide zone out of that look. You can run anything, any sort of shotgun-based run. You can give him jet sweeps with good blocking to the perimeter where Charlie Warner just takes the lead as a lead blocker. It's been really fun to see this creative wrinkle, and I just love when coaches try something new that you haven't really seen before. And it's cool too in like the drop back pass game, because you're not wasting Bijan as a pass blocker. You're getting him out there running routes, not like crazy routes or anything, but we know he's the best. I said this in the Falcons deep dive, and I'll stand by it to this day. He's the best check down weapon in the league. So even if he's not running crazy routes from the slot, he's going to be there as a check down outlet. But Charlie Warner is an excellent pass blocker, right? Like that's what he's there to do, is be a blocker. So it's just a really fun creative wrinkle, and it's absolutely working for this Falcons offense. And it's all kind of working for Atlanta right now. I'm impressed by the operation. Now, let's talk about the Bills, who dropped their second game in a row here. And the Patriots game, I was willing to dismiss as the Patriots being an up-and-coming team. Drake May kind of outdueled Josh Allen in that game. I was willing to dismiss that one as, it was the Patriots' night, and expect that the Bills were going to just brush off a night where they had a couple of uncharacteristic turnovers and settle back down. And I am actually starting to get a little bit worried about the Bills in the sense that like they have the utmost, the highest expectations to win the Super Bowl this year, right? And when that's the goal, you can be a little bit more nitpicky and be a little bit more worried about a stretch of games like this. But yeah, like I don't think the Bills are the best team in the league right now. I think they're far from it. I think defensively they have some serious issues right now. They are 32nd in the NFL in run defense DVOA, and it isn't even particularly close, by the way. Teams are gashing them. We saw this against the Ravens week 1, the Falcons here. And yeah, they're down some starters. Matt Milano is struggling to stay healthy. Daquan Jones is struggling to stay healthy, but you really can't or shouldn't be counting on those guys anyway. That's been the bill on them pun unintended, for a little bit now. So you can't really count on those guys coming back or staying healthy when they do. And I just look at this team. We've talked about how their talent base is mediocre relative to the rest of the league, and the D line is not doing a good enough job holding the line of attack. I think these safeties are really struggling. Like, man, Taylor Rapp, I know when he does find himself in good position, he's super physical and can get off blocks and is a good tackler and all that. But he is so freaking slow, man. They are allowing so many explosive plays because he just can't get there. He's probably the slowest starting safety in the NFL right now, and it feels that way when you watch this team play. I continue to question if he should be their starting deep safety. I think he has a role as a dime safety, but they've had to continue to lean on him as a deep safety, and that's been a problem for them. And unfortunately, Cole Bishop just hasn't taken that step forward as the other starter. I don't think he's processing the run game all that well. He's missed some tackles. He's taken some bad angles. He's struggled to get off blocks at times. So they're not just allowing running backs to get yardage before contact with the D-line not making an impact, but they're a little injured at linebacker, and we saw Terrell Bernard go down in this game. But even Terrell Bernard, I've had my questions on if he's an impact run defending linebacker, and I don't think we've felt him be that when he has been healthy. But with Milano out, you've had some questions at the second level. I think that's probably, though, still where they're best is. I think Shaq Thompson's playing great this season. I'm less worried about the linebackers. But yeah, that third level run support has been an issue. And they miss Christian Benford, too, who's underrated as a run defending outside corner to help stunt some of these big runs. So some of it's injuries, but a lot of it is just like they don't have a ton of energy as a defense right now. I really think Sean McDermott has run his course with this defense. I think they're tired of having these disappointing efforts, and I think you're starting to feel it with some of the body language and overall results with this defense. But also the inability for Sean McDermott, who's supposed to be a great defensive mind, and I hate seeing people on Twitter like blaming Bobby Babich. Like, yes, he's the listed defensive coordinator, but this is what Sean McDermott's supposed to be here for, is to be able to, scout ahead of time. It's not like this is brand new for the Falcons. They did it last week, and, anticipate what they were going to get and have some bit of a effort to stop this. And for the most part, the Bills did what they did, and the Falcons took advantage of the Bills do what they do. They came out in that base nickel defense, and the Falcons totally took advantage of them. So they have serious defensive issues, and that's just the run defense, really. I mean, their pass defense doesn't scare me either. And offensively, I'm less worried. I still absolutely trust the infrastructure of Josh Allen and this offensive line and James Cook. And yes, I know Bills fans are starting to turn on him a little bit, but yes, Joe Brady, I still absolutely trust that they'll get things straight here. But this is the second week in a row where you've started to actually feel the lack of an outside wide receiver presence for the Bills. This was the thing before last season that I was worried about with the Bills, that they basically from the get-go proved that it wasn't going to be an issue, that they can go out there with a bunch of slot weapons and have a quick hitting passing game and a great run game and be one of the most efficient offenses in the league. And I think for whatever reason this year, whether it's Josh Allen's just maybe not seeing things quite as well these last 2 weeks, or like the play calling has become a little bit more predictable maybe, and defenses are more aware of where their outlets are, or maybe it is just injuries with someone like Dalton Kincaid is out, and they're missing Josh Palmer as this game went on. I don't think that's necessarily the issue. I don't know necessarily what the problem is, but teams have been able to kind of collapse and take away what the Bills have done with their passing game so effectively. And maybe it is worth doing a deeper dive into what teams are doing. Is it more single high and, not giving this Bills offense all these two shell cover four style structures that we're kind of going down a rabbit hole here, but this is why the Bills offense shifted in the first place, right? Was seeing a ton of cover four and two shell structures. So they said, screw throwing the ball deep. Let's just nickel and dime and pick these teams apart. So I'm kind of talking out loud and off script a little bit here, but maybe it is worth looking into single high rates versus two high rates in recent weeks. And if that could be something that's given the Bills some struggles. It's all just a theory, but regardless, we have felt the lack of explosiveness and the lack of an outside weapon they're feeling it right now. And I know to be fair, like Palmer did get hurt and they did push the ball downfield early. They get the big completion to Palmer to start this game, and that was good to see. I still don't think Josh Palmer's the answer for them long term. Ideally, you would get Keon Coleman going vertically down the field. We saw very little of him in this game. That was definitely disappointing. You felt like in this game script, he could have been an answer to beating one-on-one coverage, making some tough catches and giving you some run after catch in this game. So they're feeling that lack of the outside wide receiver presence, and they just continue to make sloppy mistakes, right? We saw it against the Patriots last week. I was willing to dismiss it, but this week they have that big fumble in a big spot on the jet sweep. They botched the fourth down, right, or 3rd and 2, and they ended up punting. But they run a jet sweep and they fumble the pass off on it. So they keep making these kind of uncharacteristic structural mistakes. And it's not the Bills offense that we're used to seeing. They absolutely have to get back on track if they want to stand a chance, because I don't think help is on the way with this defense, whether it's players returning or Sean McDermott being anything other than what we know him to be. But it's definitely not where the Bills were at a couple weeks ago when they were feeling like the best team in the league, maybe. But fortunately, though, they do have the bye week coming up to hopefully get a little bit more healthy with their defense and clean some of this stuff up offensively. And hopefully this can be a low point in the Bills' season and they can rally here and finish strong, because they're still not in a horrible spot at 4-2. It shouldn't be all panic mode for the Bills, but again, with all these top contending teams, we're seeing a lot of these guys display some of their issues and their warts, if you will. All right, let's go to the other Monday night game. Love Monday night doubleheaders, by the way. Big fan. 2 games on, or this was another week as well where we got 3 games in the afternoon slate. That's like the sweet spot for me, where I can actually consume these games and not have to rewatch at least the broadcast version to actually remember what happened. When there's like 10 games on at once, it's just complete overload, and I sometimes just succumb to just watching one game and then rewatching the rest just so I can actually process something. But anyway, let's go to the Commanders-Bears game, and I'm gonna get my little handy dandy timer out here just for my own sanity to keep things going. Try to keep it around 10 minutes per breakdown here, because we do still have 13 more games to discuss here, but this was absolutely a good one. The Bears squeaking this one out after a pretty fun back and forth game. It was Bears, then it was Commanders, and then the Commanders see the rain come in and botch a read option, and the Bears take advantage of that and kick a game-winning field goal from Jake Moody, of all people. Is he going to be the next in line of failed drafted kickers that end up going to a new spot and succeeding? I don't know that the Bears are going to stick with Jake Moody. Santos is pretty damn accurate for them, so that would be a bit of a surprise. But maybe he goes off to a different team that needs a kicker and has success. Either way, very fun game. The Bears get a big win. They climb to 3-2. The Commanders drop to 3-3, a 500 record for the Commanders to follow up from their NFC Championship appearance last year. We'll talk about them, but for the Bears, I think you really do continue to feel the just Ben Johnson factor, with him having that firm grasp on the controller of this offense. The Bears had 205 yards in this one, coming from the run game and the screen game, just kind of taking advantage, especially it felt like to the perimeter of this older Commanders defense. These linebackers especially, I think, struggled to get out to the perimeter and get DeAndre Swift especially to the ground. But you had some good moments from Luther Burden and DJ Moore in this one as well. And the play action attack was working really well off of the run game to kind of suck these guys in and drop passes in over the top. So I really thought Ben Johnson just continues to shine with the Bears here. And also, like, obviously DeAndre Swift deserves a ton of credit. Broke a lot of tackles, made a lot of guys miss, looked really explosive out in space in this one. You can absolutely question the dude's vision between the tackles, but when Ben Johnson's getting him out in space on these tosses and sweeps and screens, that's where he is at his best. So credit to Ben Johnson for leaning into DeAndre Swift, whereas the last time he had DeAndre Swift, him and the Lions kind of kicked him out of town to bring in Jahmyr Gibbs. But also got to shout out Darnell Wright, who was a killer in this game. I don't know where to find like pancake blocks as far as that being charted or anything like that, but I would imagine he had a handful of them. And there was one play, I don't even remember which play it was, but I do vividly remember the replay, seeing Darnell Wright take out two guys to the perimeter. I think it was a toss sweep to DeAndre Swift, but he had a monster game in this one, and he is just an outstanding right tackle. So, a lot of players, and Ben Johnson deserving credit in this one. I will say I still don't think we're all the way there with this Bears offense. It's much better than it was last year. That goes without saying. And Bears fans may or may not agree with this, but I still think Caleb he's playing streaky football. He's playing better than he did last year. I still am a Caleb Williams believer and all that, but it's not this full on like jumping on the speed train and like we're off to the races with Caleb Williams. Like it's still been pretty rocky, and there's he was spotty at best in this game. I'm curious if Bears fans agree with me on that one. But this was another game, unfortunately, where there's these games where, and it's been a couple primetime games, especially it feels like, but there's these games where it feels like Caleb Williams is just on a sugar high and he can't just relax and make the throws. I don't think he did a great job playing in structure in this game, especially in their drop back passing game. Like he was fine in the screen game and the play action game, but especially the drop back game, he just didn't look very comfortable surveying the field and making the right throws, but he was inaccurate in this one as well. He actually underthrew Rome Odunze on a go ball where it did turn into double coverage because it was underthrown. But if he was able to just kind of set his feet, this one was off of play action, and drive the ball downfield. I know he has the arm talent to get it out there and just lead Odunze on the play. He ends up inviting the coverage back into the play and makes it impossible on Rome to make that catch. And then like he overcooked a throw down the left sideline at a point in this game. And to be fair, the weather wasn't great in this one, but these were before the rain came in, and we've seen Caleb have these types of moments in perfect weather games. So I not as willing to blame the weather on that when this has been a recurring issue with Caleb Williams. And also this comes back to the processing, but the 2-point conversion was frustrating, and that was at a big spot in this game. Like obviously they are fortunate that the Commanders fumbled the ball and they're able to get the good field position and end up getting the game-winning field goal here. But they go for 2 to make this a 24-22 ball game, and it's nothing crazy about the concept. It's a slant flat concept to the right side. It is the side of the field that Caleb is reading out, and the slant gets taken away, but the flat is wide open. And this is like basic NFL quarterback stuff. He should be able to break that down pretty quickly, get the ball out to the flat, and score the easy touchdown. But he ends up holding the ball, getting in the scramble drill. He takes a sack, and it was a regression for him as far as processing and decision making. And you can obviously play hindsight as 2020, and it didn't end up costing the game. But it's a huge moment where instead of a tie game, they end up with a deficit with like 6 minutes to go or whatever it was. So I don't think Caleb played his best game. And you go back to the Raiders game too. I don't think Caleb played his best game either. He ended up making some throws down the stretch to help them win that game. So it's a little hand in hand with the Bears. I think they're showing some good stuff, like Ben Johnson especially, and these playmakers are electric. I think Caleb has shown some good. He's shown some bad this year. You want to see them continue to build as an offense, though, and get better because, number one, they can't keep like depending on these super tight games that come down to like winning, not just between the margins, but like the threads of the margins. I mean, the Raiders game, they required blocking a game-winning like 40-yard field goal for the Raiders with no time left. Like that straight up, like they were super close to losing that game. And in this one, I mean, when the Commanders fumbled that ball, I had gotten up to go to the bathroom. I was watching this game at home with my wife, and I had gotten up to go to the bathroom because I was like, oh, this one's over. And I come back, I'm like, wait, the Bears got the ball back? Like, what a gift. So, like, if those two plays don't happen, we're probably talking about a 1-4 Bears team here with a lot of issues. They've gotten some good fortune, but that's not to say they can't continue to get better as a young offense here and reduce, their margin for error in that sense, or increase their margin for error, rather. I always screw that saying up, but it's not just that. It's that right now, I do think their defense is actually due for some pretty serious regression. They actually lead the NFL in turnovers right now with 8 turnovers. And, there's another one in this game where it's like, it's not like they really forced the Commanders one, right? And I don't look at this Bears defense and see a lot of talent that when you're projecting a defense to force turnovers, usually it's pass rush and opportunistic members of the secondary. It's been Geno Smith making bad reads. It was Jaden Daniels with a late read over the middle of the field, which was a good play by Brisker. The Bears have done a good job capitalizing on these mistakes, but I don't think they're going to continue to get 2 or 3 turnovers every single game. And they're going to have to get better offensively, I think, to make up for some defensive regression that I do think is coming, because they're just really out of talent right now. Like, the Jalen Johnson injury is major. They don't have a great defensive line. So it's a big win, no doubt, for the Bears. But it's not all rainbows and butterflies for Chicago either. And if you watch this game, that shouldn't be a huge surprise. Like, they were in serious jeopardy of losing this one. And for the Commanders, this wasn't a horrible night for them. But I do think this game was the perfect reflection of my fears on them coming in, where they're in a spot, I think, where they really need Jaden Daniels to be what he was at the end of last season, where he was playing in the second half of last year especially, but really all year. Jaden Daniels was playing like a genuinely elite tier 1 quarterback as a rookie. His ability to avoid mistakes, to pick defenses apart, what he was doing with his legs, the big throws, all of it was just insane. And I feared that even if Jaden takes a slight step back, the Commanders don't have the talent to make up for any sort of potential. It's hard to call it regression, because I still think the world of Jaden Daniels, but that's where they've been at, right? Like, it's been regression with his play. The first 2 weeks, he wasn't quite as good. In this game, it's not even a bag on him, but he makes a mistake, right? He's late on a throw. He makes a pick over the middle of the field that ends up being a key difference in this game. I'm not really going to put the botched exchange on a read option on him, but it was ultimately his mistake. And it's been a regression due to injuries too, right? But like, they just don't have the talent. And that's what we've been saying about this Commanders team as a potential regression candidate. It's like, don't necessarily expect that this team's going to just automatically return to the NFC Championship or be better. Like, they have serious issues, especially defensively. Like, there's only so much Dan Quinn can do. There's nights where he's able to out X's and O's opponents, right? I think we've seen that at times from this team this season, and that's great that you have that. But they can't out Jimmy's and Joe's you. And in this game, the Bears dominated in the trenches. They had way too many skill players and too much team speed for these Commanders to deal with. They just felt slow and out-talented on the defense right now. And Dorrance Armstrong can't be your best defensive player. I know Commanders fans love Dorrance Armstrong, and he can show up with some big plays from time to time, but he is the furthest thing from someone that you should be happy with being your best player. I think these linebackers feel very slow right now. Frankie Louvu hasn't been able to make the same impact he did last year. Bobby Wagner's another year older. Their cornerback situation is bad right now. I mean, unfortunately, the Marshawn Lattimore trade just isn't working out for them. And I guess I'm just not terribly surprised that this is about a 500 football team right now. This is almost spot on with kind of what I projected for the Commanders, where it's like, okay, Jaden's still great, but you might not get flawless Jaden Daniels. Like, he was on an absolute heater, and, it just felt like a young quarterback maybe was a little bit unreasonable to expect him to just be an elite quarterback. It was possible that we saw that, but we're seeing that, and then we're seeing the issues with the roster talent here, and it's fine. It's not the end of the world. It's just, maybe they were a little bit of a Cinderella team that peaked a little bit too early last year. They're still a very solid football team, and they should hopefully benefit from getting Terry McLaurin back soon as well. Like, that's been a loss, obviously, for them when they've needed to get that big third down conversion, get themselves a bucket, as I like to say. Like, Terry McLaurin is that guy for them, and he's their best player outside of Jaden Daniels, and he hasn't been available for them. So that you got to be fair to them as well in that sense. But yeah, I don't have too much else to add on Washington. It was an unfortunate loss on a night where both these teams felt pretty evenly matched, honestly. So let's go ahead and move on to the Eagles-Giants game, back to Thursday Night Football. And just out the gate here, because, and I mentioned this last week as well, but I don't love talking about Thursday Night Football 6 days after it happened. I'm cautiously optimistic that I'll have room in my schedule here, either on Friday or Saturday, to do a extra podcast. Won't be a super long one. It will be a Thursday Night Football recap show plus Patreon mailbag, which I feel bad, all of you Patreon supporters. It's a benefit that you get for signing up on Patreon. You can submit questions for the show. I've just been so overwhelmed with content, through the deep dives, that I haven't really had time to do a mailbag show, but I'm hoping things have settled down enough that I can make that a consistent part of the week. So bear with me as I try to, kind of weed that into my weekly content schedule here, and hopefully I can make that a weekly thing. We'll see where it goes. But anyway, I'm going to do a little bit of a quicker reaction because I did talk about especially the Giants side of things on the Week 6 preview show with Garrett. But I will reiterate some of those points for those of you that didn't miss that show and don't want to go back to the weekly preview show. I understand that. But obviously just a huge win for the Giants to rekindle their season. It felt like it was over after they lose to the Saints, and it's just such a bummer that they had those fumbles and lost that game, because I didn't think they were necessarily the worst team in that game against the Saints. Not to take that away from the Saints. They made some good plays in that one. But obviously if they could have won that game, then come and beat the Eagles, they've won 2 straight. They're 3-3 coming off a big win against the Eagles, right? And with how they're playing right now, this feels like it should be sustainable. And they actually, I take that back. They'd be coming off of 3 straight wins, with one of those being against the Chargers the week before that. That's how big that Saints loss threw a wrinkle in this Giants season. But I mean, you're talking about winning 3 straight, being 3-3 with a quarterback in Jackson Dart that looks legit as a first round pick. I'm not ready to say he's going to be like a tier 1, tier 2 quarterback or anything like that, but he looks like a, useful young quarterback that's a capable starter. And especially this week against the Eagles, it was making those throws, obviously with his arm, but the first couple of weeks for Dart, it was more about the scrambles and the athleticism and the kind of energy that he was bringing to the table. And that's all real and played a factor in this game. But he actually pushed the ball downfield and made some really impressive throws in this one too against a Vic Fangio defense. So like a lot of green lights with Jackson Dart right now. Cam Scadaboo proving that he should not have gone as late as he did in the 4th round. Man, my assessment of him coming out was basically, if you haven't watched Scadaboo, take the most batshit crazy power running back you've ever watched and like give him cocaine or smelling salts or crank the meters up, like whatever it is. You can't really quantify just how insane this guy is and how much physicality he runs with. And he backs it up with a ton of physical strength as well. So like, he is just so fun. With Igbuka getting hurt, Scadaboo is a candidate for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think that's going to be something to keep an eye on. Like, them funneling their offense through him. They just have so much FU, like, frat boy energy on this offense right now, and it's become fun to watch. And then the defense had a good night against the Eagles too. I didn't have quite as many takeaways from them with the defense. I think they continue to have some interesting moments with how they're scheming up the D-line. They had a really good stunt in this one that got a Brian Burns sack. But this was more about just good team defense and showing up and not quitting on Brian Daboll and, stopping the run in this one, especially as the game went on. They struggled early, slowing down Saquon, but as the game went on, the Eagles were struggling to throw the ball, as they do, and we'll talk about that. But I think this one was just a team effort to get the Eagles, who wanted to run the ball, into the second half. They wanted to have those first, second down runs and play in that script, and they couldn't. They ended up in a lot of third and longs, and that's where you want to get the Eagles if you want to beat them. So I thought it was a good team effort by the Giants, and excited to see where this goes. I mean, they're going to have to continue to pull off some of these upsets. Their schedule is, at least remembering what we said about it going into the year, it's not easy, but huge win. And we'll see where this one goes. For the Eagles, it's kind of like beating a dead horse at this point. I talked about his struggles against Denver in that game, and it was even worse this game, man. And it's not exclusively his fault, but he just was not good in this game. He was straight up bad in this game, and he was the core reason that the Eagles lose this game on Thursday night against the Eagles. He had a brutal overthrow of Devontae Smith, and I think what that highlighted was, okay, Jalen Hurts is a very accurate quarterback. That is what I will continue to praise him on. His deep ball accuracy, his touch, it's very Russell Wilson moonball-esque. That's carried their passing game, is when they're in a pinch, he's been able to throw that beautiful fade or that back shoulder to A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith to let them make the play. Well, when he's missing a wide-open Devonta Smith, when those throws are there to be made and he doesn't make it, then everything else gets highlighted. You end up with a pick six late in this game where the Eagles actually, for once, like they had to, well, I can't say for once, because in that Rams game, I praised Jalen Hurts for coming back and looking like a good quarterback in that game. Unfortunately, that the last 2 weeks, he hasn't been able to keep that going from that Rams game. But, when the Eagles have to get into their drop back passing game, that's where Jalen Hurts has to press a little bit more. He's been able, for the most part, to avoid turnovers by not forcing tight window throws on third down, just going into scramble drill, sometimes bailing out of clean pockets and either getting them, finding someone in scramble drill with his arm, which is great, or scrambling forward, or a lot of times throwing the ball away. I think Jalen Hurts leads the league in throwaways this year. And when you have the lead and you have a defense playing elite and you've got a great run game, Jalen Hurts has been able to just kind of live for the next drive. And that has sheltered a lot of his third and pass deficiencies, where you see in this game, the pick six, he gets blitzed, has to make a tough decision, doesn't throw the good look on that play, gets pick six. It's a huge difference in this game, obviously. But down to down, you're talking about not seeing the field well, bailing out of clean pockets, leaving a lot of meat on the bones of passing plays, not throwing intermediate throws with anticipation. Like, all of that was on display in this game. And he was a core reason why they lost. He's got to play better. We've seen him play better. We've seen it just a couple weeks ago. Like, can they find a way to get the Jalen Hurts that played in the second half of that Rams game, where I thought his decision-making and third down stuff was like really good? Not recently, man. So he's not playing well. And then, the play calling's also not great. I think Ben Solak said it best. You're looking at an Eagles team that has an offensive coordinator that doesn't know what buttons to press to compensate for his limited quarterback. It's the perfect description of this Eagles offense. And this really is a high school offense. It was last year. And, teams have figured out what they want to do and how to stop it. And the Giants did in this game. But is it really as simple as, okay, this is a super simple offense, make it more complex, and you're going to have a better passing game? Because we saw that. That's what the whole idea of Kellen Moore in 2024 was. He came in, and the whole offseason it was about, we want to make Dak Prescott, we want to make Jalen Hurts look like our Dak Prescott. We're going to expand this passing game. We're going to put more on Hurts' plate. And it was a disaster, right? That's why I made the Eagles Jalen Hurts video when that aged so poorly last year, because he turned around within this style of offense and played within the high school style of offense and played so much better down the stretch with the elite defense. And with the help of an elite run game and an elite defense, that this year the defense hasn't been quite as good and the run game hasn't been quite as good. I don't know that the answer is as simple as open up the playbook, make this more pro style, Jalen Hurts will handle it. That could be the solution. Every time I doubt Jalen Hurts, he impresses me, but we did see them try that last year, and it was an unmitigated disaster. I don't know that it's as simple as stop running a high school offense, right? So they're gonna have to make some adjustments, man. Like, they are a beatable Eagles team right now. They're not a bad team. I still don't think it's easy to beat this Eagles team, even though we don't think that highly of the Giants here. But they're definitely not world beaters or like Super Bowl favorites or anything like that with this current construction. And the last point here before we move on is they obviously missed Jalen Carter, right? Like, the Giants had a lot of opportunities to throw in this game, and we saw this against the Cowboys too. Like, this defense with and without Jalen Carter, like Jalen Carter might have to be the defensive player of the year without any clear front runners right now. Just considering what they've looked with and without him out there, there's just no fear factor from this front without him. And by the way, Zach Bond had his first bad game as an Eagle in a long time. I don't think that's going to continue either. So I'm not necessarily panicking about the Eagles. I still see this as a double-digit team that's going to win this division, but you want to see them figure some stuff out as the year goes on. And if things do continue to spiral here, I just will look at Nick Sirianni again and be like, is he really going to avoid all the blame? I mean, I know we're saying the offensive coordinator is the problem, but Nick Sirianni is supposed to be an offensive mind. He's the one that picked Patullo, right? The offensive coordinator. And before 2024, this is exactly what happened, right? The offensive scheme fell by the wayside. So I'm starting to, put a little pressure on Nick Sirianni to help get things straightened out here for this Eagles team that's lost 2 straight. But let's move on to the Seahawks-Jags game. The Seahawks win this one 20-12, really on the heels of a dominant defensive performance, the best defensive outing for the Seahawks this season. And it's just, I can't understate how important that is, because the Seahawks have been this weird team where they've kind of challenged my preconceived notions on them, where like Sam Darnold has been unbelievably good this year. He's been up there in the conversation for who's been the best QB in the league this year. He's really been that good. And, I unfortunately was wrong to basically overreact to his end of season collapse in Minnesota. And it makes me a little sad, because I was really pro Darnold last year, kind of predicted that he would have success in Minnesota and all that. And that ended up being one of my better takes last year. It's kind of sad for me that I did doubt him as much as I did here in Seattle. I was worried about the offensive line that has been, for the most part, better. I think the schemes protected it, and the guys have played a little bit better there than they did last year. But Darnold he's just been out of his mind, and that's been different than what I expected on Seattle. But their defense also hasn't been as good as I was hoping they would be. Either to start the season. They've been fine defensively, but you were really hoping for that big year 2 leap from this Mike McDonald defense, and they haven't quite gotten there yet. They've had to win some shootouts, and the defense definitely hasn't stood out to this point. This week it did. This week was, yes, a continuation of Darnold and Jackson Smith and Jigba looking like one of the best wide receiver quarterback duos in the league, but getting the support of the defense in this one, where they get 7 sacks and just terrorized Trevor Lawrence in this game. That's more consistent with, I think, what the vision for the Seahawks was, right? To have a dominant defense and have some of these changes on offense work out. Well, they've hit all the green lights on offense. The defense, up until this point, we haven't seen this version of them. So that's where it gets like super exciting for the upside of this Seahawks team. And what's crazy about the 7 sacks they got in this game, it felt like they were blitzing like all the time. Just watching this game, You see guys moving all over the field, the twists and stunts. It felt to me like this was going to be, okay, the Seahawks were blitzing 33 to 40% of the time to make Trevor Lawrence uncomfortable. They actually only blitzed 7 times in this game, which was 10% of Trevor Lawrence's dropbacks. And that comes back to what I said about the Mike Macdonald system throughout the kind of deep dive series, is that the core idea of this defense is to blitz about 10% of the time. That's consistent with the game plan, the overall scheme directive, if you will. Be extremely effective and efficient when you do blitz, where you have self-scouted and scouted the opponent and understand how to draw slides, how to draw phantom pressures. If you're going to blitz, be damn sure like you're going to find that numbers advantage and get free rushers in. And we saw that in this one for sure. But mainly to move guys around, be multiple with your front, cause confusion with pre-snap looks where you're showing blitz, you're causing guys to slide in one direction, but you're actually not blitzing. You're just dropping 7, rushing 4, but moving guys around. This was the Mike Macdonald system in a nutshell. Like, if you want to know what makes this system that's being permeated around the league, what makes Mike Macdonald so special, just take the time to watch Trevor Lawrence's dropbacks in this game. It was everything we've discussed with this system on full display, and it was so impressive and a reminder like, hey, look, this Seahawks team has been mostly about their offense this year, but don't forget they have one of the premium defensive minds in the league, if not the premium defensive mind in the league. And if this is just the beginning of things starting to get rolling for this defense, as they were still without Julian Love and more importantly, Devon Witherspoon in this game, this could start to get pretty crazy with how good Seattle could be. And I had them ranked inside the top 10 of my power rankings for the first time this year. They could continue to climb here. And it's not just the scheme. I think the scheme was the most prominent reason why the defense had success in this one, but the players made the plays too. I think especially Byron Murphy, it's time to highlight him. You know, year one was disappointing for him because I think he was mostly battling through an injury and just wasn't his full self, but he was also a rookie. I loved Byron Murphy coming out. I thought he was the best defensive player in that draft. I thought it was a total steal when the Seahawks got him in the middle of that draft. And he continues to look really good. He had 7 pressures, and it felt like he was involved in half of those 7 sacks in this game. But he's been really underrated, I think, to start his sophomore campaign here. And how often have I said with this Seahawks defense at this point where there's games where it's felt like they're missing that alpha number 1 pass rusher that demands attention. You know, think about what we just said about the Eagles, the difference with and without Jalen Carter out there, kind of in that same light. If Byron Murphy continues to play like he did in this game and has a couple times this year, you're talking about a number 1 pass rusher. You're talking about someone that Mike Macdonald knows the offensive line is going to have to start double teaming. And if he knows where those slides are going to go, like, that's really what we're talking about being the difference here. Moving forward would be like an even further amplification of everything we just talked about with how brilliant Mike Macdonald is at scheming up the rush. And then also just his ability to eat one-on-one reps. And when you do blitz, you're able to create one-on-one advantages for Byron Murphy, who you can move around. There's just so much yet to be unlocked if Byron Murphy is that dude. So he was getting after it in this game. And then you also got the best outings from DeMarcus Lawrence, Leonard Williams, and Uchenna Nwosu in this game. All had their best games of the season. So just a brilliant outing for the Seahawks defense on a day where Sam Darnold and Jackson Smith-Njigba continued to dominate. I mean, they've been a top 5 story of this NFL season is how well they've played. So just copy and paste that into this one as well. So a lot of excitement for the Seahawks in this one, you know, kind of mirroring the excitement we had on the Jags last week after they beat the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. I hate seeing the Jags play like this right after I make the video on them. I know it's like we're joking and it's all in good fun that the TFG curse, you know, could have played into this loss for the Jags, but it is so consistent that the second I kind of take that step further and praise a team, it's like, or in this case, make a video about a team or tweet about a player, whatever it is, it immediately just snaps back to earth. Like, that's what happened in this game. I make the Jags video on Saturday, and they have their most disappointing game of the season. It is pretty crazy, but if nothing else, it's just unfortunate to see that narrative flip a little bit. I will say, though, for those that did watch the Jags video, I do still think it's worth a watch because, number one, I don't think that the season's over for the Jags by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think you just erase what they've shown for the first 5 weeks. They're still a 4-2 team. So I'm not panicking about this team, but it's also still worth watching because the reason the Jags lost this game is exactly what I highlighted in that video as being the one core drawback of this Jags team that does need to get better if they're going to be a legitimate playoff contender. That's exactly what I said in that video. And in this game against Seattle, that issue was the passing game. All of the inconsistencies with their ability to throw the football have held this team back at times. Like I said in the video, it hasn't held them back from winning games ultimately, but in this one it did. And it was kind of everything we've said about Trevor Lawrence and his accuracy issues. They showed up big time in this game. There were some, overthrows. He overthrew a deep ball in this game that would have been a huge play, but it was also just like being a little bit off, like making a bunch of throws harder for his receivers to catch, and ultimately they didn't make a lot of those catches. And then it was the drops. Brian Thomas had a brutal third down drop in this game that was a huge difference in this game. And then on top of that, we unfortunately saw the offensive line that had been spectacular this season. They struggled in this game, really struggling to pick up these twists and blitzes. I think having Robert Hainsey out, their starting center, was huge in terms of the mental part of handling a pass rush like this. So, I do still encourage you to go check out that Jags video if you haven't watched it yet. I think there's still a lot of hope, but frustration as well coming out of this game that we saw a continuation of their inability to consistently throw the football. But defense still made some plays in this game, and I think you still saw some splashes in the run game as well, but they fell short in this one. They fall to 4-2, and still a team though I'm excited to see if, like, they're a young team, man. They've played 6 games in the Liam Cohen regime and they're 4-2. Like, it shouldn't be all panic with the Jags, but definitely a disappointing week for them. Let's move to South Florida here, to Tampa Bay for the Niners-Bucks game. The Bucks end up winning this one 30-19, kind of steadily pulling ahead of the Niners, who were scrappy and competitive at the beginning of this game. But the story of this one is all about Baker Mayfield, man. I mean, he's been the story of this season. Frankly, he is kind of everybody's week 6, week 7 pick for MVP, myself included. I mean, his performance in this game and in this season, it's the literal definition of most valuable player, where you look at what he's got to work with, and the offensive line is not playing well. His receivers are dropping like flies. Obviously Igbuka's played super well this year, but it's been mostly about Baker Mayfield making MVP type of plays, extending plays, dropping dimes in structure, elevating this offense to everything that it is right now. In the last 2 weeks, like, they haven't even had Bucky Irving, which is crazy. So he is the definition of an MVP this season. In this game, no different. When there's a sequence in this game that if Baker does continue this stretch, they will play this sequence at his MVP, honoree, at the NFL honors when they put together the B-roll. This sequence is what they will play, where honestly, it's a tight game. I think it's 20-19 at this point. The Niners had just taken or had a drive to make it a 1-score game, and they've got Baker dead to rights. It is 3rd and 16. The pressure gets in. 2 49ers defenders converge and try to bring Baker down for a sack. He splits the tackle attempt, steps up, and starts scrambling. And you're still like, Oh, well, that was impressive that he even got out of that, but obviously someone's going to bring him down. Like, Baker's not about to scramble for 16 yards. And he then makes a guy miss. I don't remember who it was, but he makes a guy miss and then shows like good vision to find his way to dive for the first down. It's just like a holy shit moment. And then I don't know if it was the exact next play, but within the next few plays, he steps up and just throws an absolute laser strike to Tez Johnson for the touchdown. I was the Leonardo DiCaprio meme. I don't even remember what movie it's from. I think it's the Hollywood, What to Do in Hollywood, or whatever that movie was with him and Brad Pitt. But I think it's from that movie. But he's on his couch in like a wife beater and a beer in his hand, and he's just like, oh, pointing at the TV. That was me at home watching Sunday football by myself, and from that moment, it was just insane. But yeah, dude, everybody just keeps dropping like flies. Igbuka goes down in this game with a hamstring injury, and he's throwing to Tez Johnson and Cameron Johnson. Just remarkable what Baker's doing right now. So love to see that. And then the defense also really bunkered down in this one as well. This game, I think, was also a reminder that Todd Bowles is one of the best defensive coaches in the league. And I think Shanahan got him early in the game, but it was a subtle shift back towards Todd Bowles, making the right adjustments, taking away what the Niners were doing well, and also drawing up some good blitz looks to get Mac Jones off the field and put this game away. So Todd Bowles was excellent coaching this game, and Vita Vea as well had a monster game. This was the most I've felt Vita Vea, especially as a pass rusher, in a long time. He had 5 key pressures in this game, splitting double teams, pushing the pocket. And they need that, right? They have not had really anybody step up as a pass rusher this year. Kalijah Cansey being out is a big deal, but Hassan Reddick's been fine. Yaya Diaby's been fine, but those guys haven't been like, when you need that signature pressure, they haven't really been able to get it for them. And Vita Vea was able to do that in this game. So I'm not necessarily expecting him to keep doing that, but it's good to know that it's in there. He's been a very good pass rusher, but he was a great pass rusher in this one. So we'll see if the Bucks can keep this up, man. They're a very challenging team to analyze, because you don't even know like who they're gonna have any given week right now. It feels unsustainable in the back of my mind, but like I think they're well coached. I think Baker is like, you can't really bet against Baker right now. They're for me at least, I know everybody wants to say they're the best team in football. They're 5-1, that they're unbeatable. That's kind of the narrative coming out of this one. My gut is like pushing back on that a little bit. And you got to keep in mind, like when I have no reason to be anti-Bucks. Like I put them very high in my preseason power rankings. And when I released them, they were consistently the team that people said I was too high on heading into the year. So it's not that I'm like hesitant to say the Bucks are like amazing and are going to go win the Super Bowl or anything like that. Far from it. But with all these injuries, it's like I'm a little hesitant to say that this is repeatable every week, but I'll continue to go with the John Wick reference, right? Anybody that's watched the John Wick series, this team and Baker Mayfield is a John Wick movie where they go into fight. John Wick takes another couple broken bones, a couple gun wounds. He goes back, stocks back up, comes up with a new game plan, and ends up, continuously finding a way to accomplish what he needs to. That is what this team feels like to me. And I love the John Wick movies, and I am treating the Tampa Bay season just like that. It's been an absolute blast to watch this team. So they climbed to 5-1. And then for the Niners, I mean, what's truly left to say about this team, dude? This is for a Niners team that deals with this every year, this is truly the season from hell. Fred Warner obviously goes down in the first half of this game. He gets carted off. He's going to miss the season, it sounds like. And this is not what this season was supposed to look like. I mean, it's commendable. They're out there with a great coaching staff, and Mac Jones playing as hard as he can, throwing to Kendrick Bourne and Demarcus Robinson, and this team is competing their ass off, but it's just not what this is supposed to look like. The only hope at this point is that you get Brock Purdy, Kittle, and Ayuk back, and maybe this can turn into like a prolific offense, and the defense can just be a high floor Robert Saleh coach defense, and maybe that team can be still a playoff caliber team. It's not like everything is over for the Niners, but when Fred Warner goes down, especially, I mean, he is truly the heartbeat of that defense. He's not just that, but he is literally the guy that gets the play calls and gets everybody lined up. You saw some coverage busts in this game after he goes down. I don't think that's a huge coincidence, but you could just feel the soul of this team exiting their body when Fred Warner goes down. It's just a huge loss, and it was a commendable effort for them to be competitive in this game. The Bucs pulled away late, but it just sucks. Like, that's all I can really say about the Niners. It's hard to be critical of them losing games when you're down to all of these backups. It's just the unfortunate reality of where they're at and the sport. So, again, their big hope is getting some guys back offensively. And I think that's all Niners fans are looking for right now, is a little bit of hope, not necessarily criticism of them losing this game. So let's go ahead and move forward to the Cowboys-Panthers game. Really fun back and forth battle here. The Panthers pull this one out. Really strong second half in this game. They win this one 30-27. Keep pounding, baby. I mean, this team was dead to rights. It was heading into that Dolphins game. It was like, man, Bryce has got to play well or it's over for him. And he did not play well. They were down 17-0, but keep pounding is just the perfect freaking slogan for this team, because I think in two ways. Number one, it's like someone performed CPR in this team. They kept pounding on the Panthers' chest, brought them back from the dead in the second half of that Dolphins game. And now they've got a heartbeat, if nothing else. So keep pounding in that sense. And also, it's the perfect slogan for them because of their run game. Keep pounding the rock, man. We saw that last year with Chuba Hubbard. This year, it's Rico Dowdle, who's turned into one of the fun stories of the year. The revenge game this week against the Cowboys breaks the record for the most total yards in a game against your former team. It's just insane. And how can he not be impressed by how he looks right now? I think you're seeing. So when he was in Dallas, I was never super big on Rico Dowdle because he just didn't have a lot of juice. Didn't break a ton of tackles. Didn't appear as this like physically gifted player. But the one thing that he did have that I did praise him for was like really hyper consistent vision in Dallas. And he is the perfect example of how underrated vision is for a running back. And also, like, he is just teach tape on vision. Like, if you're a high school football coach or a college coach, I would be showing Rico Dowdle tape just to show you what a running back should be doing. And some running backs, they can get away with bad vision because they're just such physical freaks. But Rico Dowdle is the perfect example for the 99% of running backs out there that need to have good vision. He can press the hole when it's necessary and get up to the line in a hurry and take advantage of, small holes when he needs to like get through the crease in a hurry. But he also understands the right concepts and when it's the right idea to show patience, let blocks set up, especially on like combo blocks, zone, duo, that kind of stuff. He's got the perfect balance. He can run gap, he can run duo, he can run outside zone and see cutbacks. And he also has vision in the sense of anticipating those second level defenders and understanding how to set them up. He has the most nasty, subtle, hezzy step in the league right now, where you got to really dive into the tape to see it. But there's one specific run, and it kept showing up once I noticed it, but it kept showing up every run with him. So keep an eye on this now that you're watching Rico Dowdle. But there's one specific run where I think it was just inside zone, and he's basically deciding whether to go outside with it, to bounce it outside, or to go inside. And it's like Oklahoma drill, basically, where he's got a blocker in front of him. The block is on a defensive lineman. You've got a linebacker coming from the second level and Rico Dowdle. Like that is literally Oklahoma drill, right? And he's caught 50-50 in this moment. He's kind of slowed down his momentum. Do I go outside? Do I go inside? And he just does the most subtle, hezzy step to the outside, forces the linebacker to take a step, commit to the outside, and then he breaks it back inside. And at that point, you see the decisiveness. There's the patience and the creative vision to make that move, but then it's the confidence as well to know that gap was there. And he hits it hard for like 8 yards on the play. It's just like, yes, that is how you thrive. So it's like Rico Dowdle and Kyron Williams are teach tape with vision. And then he's pairing that with breaking tackles, running hard, a little explosive ability through the receiving game and pulling away from defenses. I mean, he's playing like a superstar right now. So there's a lot of talk about, is he the starter now? There was even some talk about, should they trade Chuba Hubbard? No, that's not on this Panthers team mind. I can guarantee you that. They love Chuba Hubbard in that locker room. How Rico Dowdle is playing doesn't take away the fact that Chuba Hubbard emerged as a top 10 running back in the league last year. The way I see it is you now have two guys with eerily identical skill sets, frankly, that's a weapon. Like, even the biggest starting running backs in the league, they got to come off the field at some point. What you don't want is it to be predictable when you put in the backup to know what types of concepts you might be running or that it might be a pass. That's not going to be the case when you have Rico Dowdle and Chuba Hubbard. You're going to be able to just rotate these guys, probably just give Rico a drive, give Chuba a drive, and simplify it down to that. Because these guys' skill sets really are so identical. And just let it ride, man. And if someone gets beat up, if Chuba gets beat up again, or if Rico gets beat up, you have a guy that you can lean on. It's a good spot to be in. And like, they're not going to trade Chuba Hubbard. He's on a super friendly, team-friendly contract for the next 3 seasons after this. He's making like $8-9 million a year. Like, that's a great deal for Chuba. They're not going to give that away. He's a leader in that locker room. And Rico Dowdle is on a 1-year deal. So I don't know if they'll extend Rico. I think that's going to come down to what the health of Jonathan Brooks looks like. But also just another great mentor to have in that room for Jonathan Brooks, as you hope the young 23-year-old can maybe still have a career for you, the second-round pick last year. So it's a good problem to have for the Panthers. But it's not just the running backs. The offensive line also deserves a ton of credit here in Carolina. This team's a reminder that investing in offensive line depth is so important. And a reminder, something I say all the time, like, there's only 3 or 4 teams, if that go through a whole season without having to deal with significant offensive line injuries. And, the Panthers were mostly healthy last year, but they still committed to the depth of this team. Last year, they gave Yosh Nijman, who had to start at right tackle in this game, a 2-year deal. He's been an adequate kind of swing tackle in his time in the league. Brady Christensen was brought back here. Cade Mays was extended here. Even though none of those names were starting guys heading into the year, the Panthers understand the importance of offensive line depth, and they committed to bringing all these guys back. And it was a huge difference in this game, man. I mean, all 3 of these guys played well, but Cade Mays especially, he deserves a specific shout out because he, I think, has taken this job. Austin Corbett went down a few weeks ago, and Cade Mays did this last year too, actually. He stepped in as a center and really stood out. Someone we talked about in my Studs and Duds series last year, which, by the way, should be coming as we head into week 9. So 1 more week after this without Studs and Duds. A lot of you guys excited, a lot of people asking about it, but and when we do that, I'll just say that right now, that will overtake the weekly recaps as we go through Studs and Duds. Only have so much time in the week to get everything done. But those will get uploaded as the podcast this year. So just a little Studs and Duds update there. But anyway, Cade Mays absolutely looks the part, man. This was a 5-star, well, depending where you look, 4-star, 5-star, SEC type of recruit, a top 100, ESPN top 100 type of guy, goes to Georgia and then transfers to Tennessee. And like, freaky athlete, freaky, especially like freaky play strength, was a dude that when I saw him at the Senior Bowl, I was like, oh God, who's the guy in the Tennessee helmet? Like that guy looks like the NFL lineman, but he's had some technique issues. He's had an interesting journey. He was a tackle coming out. And I said freaky athlete. It's more of like the strength and the explosiveness. I think his lateral foot speed was always a question mark on him that led to him falling and eventually being viewed as a guard prospect. But he's obviously like he slid all the way into center and has really settled in there. I'm a big fan of the big mauling centers. It's just a size advantage that not a lot of offensive lines have. Most centers are your smallest guy, but Cade Mays at 6'5", 325 pounds. There's a lot of Creed Humphrey in his game. I'm not saying he's as good as Creed Humphrey, but the way he's able to displace guys in the run game, there's really something there. I really think we're talking about a year 4, 6th round breakout for him on an already pretty good offensive line. So the offensive line deserves credit. These tight ends were blocking their ass off too. Tommy Tremble and the rookie Evans both had standout blocks in this game. So that was the huge takeaway from this game was the Panthers run game. I've now exhausted all 10 minutes of my analysis on my timer. Just talking about the Panthers run game, but Bryce continues to play really well since the second half of that Dolphins game. No turnovers in this game. He made a bunch of big throws in this one. The first touchdown to T-Mac was beautiful. Hits him in structure down the field. The opening drive of the second half, he had back-to-back wheel routes where he hits those for a touchdown drive. The second touchdown to T-Mac was slick, where he steps up in the face of pressure and finds him on a second window throw down in the red zone, and then just beating the pressure on big fourth down that ended up being the game-winning drive to milk the clock to Hunter Renfrow, just getting the ball out quick and winning that way too. So Bryce played well. And the Panthers defense didn't play great in this game, but they're getting some contributors now the last couple of weeks. Last week we talked about Trevin Wallace starting to play much better. We saw that in this game. He was all over the field. Christian Roseboom, I think, has had back-to-back good games for this team. And Bobby Brown Jr. had some big stops against the run, too, that led to just enough defense for the Panthers in this one. Then for Dallas, don't need to spend too much time on them because I think this was maybe not the most surprising outcome for Dallas. I did pick them to win, and you expected them to win this game, but you knew, and you know, for the Cowboys, any given week, this defense can lead to this team losing, and that's what we saw. I mean, they struggled to get off the field, especially in the second half of this game. And when that's the case, like, you just need Dak Prescott to be perfect. And it wasn't even that Dak wasn't perfect. You need the offense to be perfect. And there was just a couple drives that they failed to execute. They start the game with a 3-and-out. That ended up being very costly when you look back in this game. And then 2 of their last drives, they fall short. There's a 3rd-and-1 run late in the third quarter that they couldn't get a yard. That was one of those Bobby Brown stops. So they have to punt it away after that. And then there's another drive in the fourth quarter. And these are critical drives because the Panthers were milking the clock. They weren't letting you get the ball. So there's after a long drive for the Panthers, Dallas gets the ball. And their first 2 plays are short passes to Javonte Williams that net a negative 12 yards, and they have to punt. So the offense just stalled a couple times. Not even necessarily Dak's fault. But you basically have to score almost every drive if you're Dallas, if you want to win when your defense is playing this bad. But it wasn't all bad. Like, again, Dak continued to play well, and George Pickens is emerging as like a dominant number 1 wide receiver in a way that he hadn't quite done in Pittsburgh. I mean, that's pretty simple. He's outstanding. He's doing everything, run after catch, making crazy catches. He's getting comfortable with Dak, chemistry-wise. And this is leading up to some potentially legendary contract drama this offseason. And maybe it's just as simple as it's a tag and trade and they can't really afford to pay Dak and CD and George Pickens. But I do think that was part of the Micah Parsons trade, was considering the possibility that maybe they do want to just have Dak with this wide receiver duo. Given everything we've said about Jerry Jones and what we know about George Pickens just being kind of a goofball, like, say whatever you want about George Pickens, him being a goofball is the perfect description. And we could be getting some legendary contract drama. There could be tweets, there could be Jerry comments. I think it could be setting up to be a fun offseason narrative. But ultimately, this was a big turning point, I think, in these teams' season. I said going in, whoever comes out of this game, I think, is going to get some NFC wildcard hype. And the Panthers climbed to 3-3. They're playing much better. The Cowboys lose this one. The defense feels like a major issue. They fall to 2-3-1. And you're definitely feeling better about the Panthers moving forward than you are Dallas. Obviously, it's the not-for-long league. Things can change. But this does feel like it could be a potential fork in the roads moment for both these teams and their seasons. All right, I'm going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to go to Miami for the Chargers-Dolphins game. Fun game down in South Beach this week. The Chargers narrowly escaped this game in Miami, winning this one 29-7, really off of just a heroic vintage Justin Herbert moment, another clutch moment from Herbert where he's dead to rights. I mean, there's 26 seconds left in this game. They need a field goal to win the game. It's 26-27. And Herbert had Jalen Phillips all over him. He shrugs him off, steps up, and sees Ladd McConkey on a crossing route, wide open, drops it off to Ladd for 8 yards, and then Ladd turns upfield, makes Dante Trader miss, is off to the races, and before he can blink, the Chargers, right at the moment Jalen Phillips is in the backfield, gets a pressure on Herbert. You think this game is pretty much over at that point, and just as soon as you can blink, the Chargers win this game on a field goal. So, it hasn't been the most impressive 3-week stretch for the Chargers. They lose to the Giants, get kind of blown out by the Commanders, especially in the second half of that game. And now, narrowly escaping against a pretty hapless Dolphins team. I'm not going to say this was an impressive win for the Chargers, but I will remind people, anytime you're as injured as the Chargers are, and you have to go on a 6-hour flight, if not more, down to Miami, and you win an NFL game, it's still an accomplishment. I'm not going to say it's overly impressive, but still the Chargers get to 4-2. And this is more about surviving and keeping their head above water for a few weeks here while they really go through injuries, because I do think getting Joe Alt back will answer a lot of their problems with this offensive line. And obviously the Chargers offense played well in this game. Herbert played well. These receivers played well. You better believe I'm taking my Kamani Vidal victory lap before we move on to Miami here. But, defensively, they've taken a step back. It's not overly surprising. We talked heading into the year about their lack of overall talent on the defense. They've taken a step back, but they're really feeling the lack of Khalil Mack, who was quietly still one of the better pass rushers in football last year. They just haven't had that really at all this year. And I know they went and traded for Owe. Owe got a sack in his first game here, first sack on the season. It was on a play-action boot where they're chip blocking him with a tight end, and he runs down Tua in the flat. So one of those sacks. He did have a really nice pressure later in the game, though. But obviously, they're hoping Khalil Mack can get back there and hurry as well. Hopefully that can happen. But I do think getting the offensive line should return this team to some form of what they were to start the season. Now, we got to talk about Kamani Vidal, man. I've been crying for this since before the draft. I think he was my RB5 in that draft with a 3rd to a 4th round grade. Thought he was one of the steals of the draft when the Chargers took him. And I thought last year that there was a chance with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. I thought there was a chance he would take that job last year. They seemingly didn't really want to fully commit to him. J.K. Dobbins played well last year too, so there's that. But then this offseason, they hype him up a little bit, but then he doesn't even make the team, despite the fact that I thought he looked good in the preseason. So that was kind of weird. And at that point, I was like, come on, Vidal's got to get out of there. He's got to find a coaching staff that believes in him. And even this week, with Omarion Hampton out, Najee obviously done for the year, even this week, they're saying that Haskins is the starter, and there was a trade report that the Chargers were making phone calls about running backs this week. And it's like, give the guy a freaking chance. Just see what happens if you give him 15 carries or whatever. Like, the dude has so much talent. He's this unique, like, short, compact, like, contact balance build, but he's got 4.4 speed. And he finally gets a chance this week. And wow, shocker, he's really good. Clearly better than Haskins, who didn't do much in this game. But Kamani Vidal has 140 scrimmage yards in this game, the touchdown, not just running the ball super hard, breaking tackles. He had multiple breakaway runs of 10, 15, 20 yards in this game. You definitely saw the speed, but you saw him shrugging a few guys off in the backfield. I don't know that his vision is super outstanding or anything like that. I didn't think it was coming out of Troy, but he has a really talented skill set, and it's hard to find. It's a little bit of the same idea of Ashton Ginty, where it's hard to find a guy that is hard to tackle because he's short and compact that also has breakaway ability. He's obviously not Ashton Ginty, but man, hopefully the Chargers finally wake up here because this guy has talent. And I think, if nothing else, now, when Hampton does come back, I think you have a really nice RB2 to spell Hampton a little bit. So happy for Kamani Vidal. And I said it, I was like, look, I'm still not that worried about it when Hampton goes down because, Kamani Vidal, I think, can play. And it's really good to see a confirmation of that. So Chargers are just kind of keeping their heads above water. Huge for them to escape this one against Miami here with a win because they very easily could have lost. And hopefully, we can see them get a return back to how we felt about them to start the season as we progress deeper into this year. As for Miami, another tough loss. Unfortunately, they couldn't fully capitalize on the Chargers' offensive line issues that we've seen be such a problem for the last couple of weeks. I mean, you go back to the Chargers against the Giants and against the Commanders, they couldn't block a user on Twitter. This was awful pass protection. And they weren't running the ball all that well either. And I think this is an indictment of Miami's defensive line that we've been hard on all year. It's an indictment of just how bad things are for them right now to not be able to take advantage of this game. Think back to how I previewed the Commanders-Chargers game a week ago. I was like, well, the Commanders' pass rush hasn't done much, but hopefully they're at least good enough that they can take advantage of the Chargers' offensive line, and that's exactly what they did. Well, in this game, granted, you got a little bit more from the Dolphins' defensive line, rather. You got Jalen Phillips, especially, had a pretty good game. He had 4 pressures, and unfortunately, even for him, the biggest pressure he got, he couldn't get Herbert to the ground in the end. But Chop Robinson still only had 1 pressure in this game. Kenneth Grant only had 2 pressures. Granted, he turned one of those into a sack. Bradley Chubb, just 2 pressures. Zach Sealer, just 2 pressures. It's not a horrible day from this Dolphins defensive line, but again, the Chargers offensive line has been bleeding out, and you want to see your team smell blood and spark something with this D-line that it's the same thing we've been saying, where if anything was supposed to be good about the Dolphins defense this year, you were hoping it was going to be the defensive line elevating that unit because you have very low expectations for especially the secondary, and that showed in this game. I mean, you got Ethan Bonner trying to cover Ladd McConkey. It's just not a good secondary, and that was always going to be an issue for them. But definitely a bummer that they couldn't capitalize and frankly have a better day of defense than they had, giving up 29 points to the Chargers here. So defensively, they obviously have issues. And then offensively, It's kind of tough because I actually think Mike McDaniel's doing a very good job scheming up offense for this team. Tua's not playing well this year. He hasn't played well all year long. It was bad again in this game. He had another bad pick, forcing it over the middle of the field. He had multiple intermediate throws that he just sprays too high. And it's tough because I both think Mike McDaniel is doing a good job with this offense, and he's probably got to go. McDaniel to me screams like just wasn't the right fit. He needs to go take an offensive coordinator position somewhere, prove that he can still do that, and then give it another go as a more experienced head coach in a different organization. I think I said this in the power rankings, but this feels like Mike McDaniel is catching friendly fire. You're talking about a kind of like young, nerdy head coach having to also instill like a culture of toughness in Miami that doesn't exist. It's hard. Like, I would love to see McDaniel paired with a legit defensive coordinator that can bring some of that toughness to the team. Not that I think all that lowly of Anthony Weaver, but it's more of a cultural problem in Miami that everybody's kind of dragged down by it. So like, what I'm trying to say is I think McDaniel, I still think a lot of him, honestly, but I also think the Dolphins need a total reset. And I think it's a total reset with GM first and foremost. Greer has overstayed his welcome. He has for a long time here. But GM, coach, and quarterback, frankly. And I don't think that there's too many Dolphins fans left to push back on the reality of Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, now it's like he's not even playing well when he's out there. Recently, it's like, well, he's probably still at least like a tier 3, like good quarterback when he's playing. Obviously not a guy that's going to like elevate your team, and he's got his deficiencies, but he was at least playing pretty well the last few years when he's been out there. But you've had this kind of like fear of the injuries and the concussions. Now it's like he's not even playing well, and at any given moment he could have to retire. I look at this and it's like, you know what needs to be done. Do they have the power to do it? We're going to find out maybe at some point this season, but probably this offseason. And, it'll be interesting to see kind of where everything goes. Like what happens with Tyreek Hill, what happens with Tua. I don't think anyone's going to trade for Tua, not on that contract. And I would be very interested if Tua just gets outright released. Is there a single team in the league that actually views Tua as a starting quarterback? I mean, there might be a team that needs their bridge option. Maybe it's Pittsburgh, doesn't quite have their rookie yet, or whoever it might be. But I don't see Tua getting anything more than like a 1-year, $10 million deal on the open market. And the other thing I'm curious, just as this season goes on, if you know where this is headed, do we see them play Zach Wilson, knowing that they're going to move on from Tua? Do we see them go to Zach Wilson maybe to hold on to any hope that you might trade Tua, even if that's unrealistic, but also just to see if Zach Wilson could be a bridge quarterback option for them as they go through this reset? Kind of treat him in some ways like what Spencer Rattler is for the Saints, where you just kind of have a cheap quarterback that you just kind of see where it goes, but can he just play well enough to keep things afloat? I wonder if that's where we're headed here. So we're already in off-season rebuild conversations with Miami. Like this team, even if they rally and win some close games because they're scheming up some offense, Devon Achane is awesome, and Jalen Waddle's had some good moments the last couple of weeks, and Darren Waller's playing well. Like they can score north of 20 points every week. Unfortunately, with their defense, that's not enough for them to win. But even if they rally and turn into a 6-11 team, they're not going anywhere, right? So that's where we're at with Miami. They're going to continue to be a pretty challenging team to find talking points on as this season goes on, or at least new talking points. But let's go ahead and move forward to the London game. The Broncos defeating the Jets 13-11. I tweeted it Sunday morning. I slept in. I made a decision. I took my wife to work for her 24-hour shift at the hospital, and I got back, and I was like, do I stay up and watch this game or do I sleep in and watch the condensed version? And I chose the latter option. I'm very glad I did because this was not exactly the best football game for the Brits out there in London. But the Broncos escape with a win. They get to 4-2, their third straight win from the moment that I kind of tried to defend them as after their slow start, that this team is better than they are getting credit for. So good to see them turning things around here. But obviously coming out of this one, there's going to be some concerns about the Broncos offense and are they legit? And, Bo Nix, who everybody wants to jump on the second they get a chance. And it wasn't a good day for the Broncos offense. I don't know, it's not like I have any reason to be the defender of the Denver Broncos here, but I don't know. I'm curious what you guys think. Like, I didn't watch this game like in panic mode about the Broncos offense. This to me really felt like it became very evident very early for the Broncos that the Jets weren't moving the football. And they, to me, just had a conservative offensive game plan. It was a lot of second down runs, a lot of play action boots, short throws, jet sweeps, screens. And the Jets deserve a lot of credit for shutting that stuff down. But even like the design passing game was super conservative. Bo Nix had just one target of 15 plus yards and only 5 of more than 10. Even all the way down to like, there's a 3rd and 9 with 3 minutes left in this game when the Broncos have that 13-11 lead. And they're backed up. Like, if you punt this, you're at risk of the Jets going to get a field goal. And they call a 3rd and 9 pass, which is it's a 9-man protection with a check down option and one deep crossing route with the Jets took away. And I've watched a lot of Sean Payton offense. I've watched a lot of this Broncos offense. They just weren't calling this game to win the game. And that drives me crazy. But it reminds me a lot of that Packers game plan against the Browns, only the Broncos finished the game in this one. But they called this one playing not to lose, and they didn't lose. I would just say, to me, it's not that Bo Nix and the Broncos offense didn't play well. It's that they weren't asked to play well in this game. The one holdup is they didn't run the ball particularly effective in this game, where that's what they were really leaning on. So we'll continue to evaluate this Broncos offense. The thing is, I think people are expecting this to be some great offense, and that's not really the point of the Denver Broncos at this point. Like, you want them to play better than they did in this game, of course, but like, this Broncos team is about their defense. And they beat the Eagles on the heels of their defense. And they win this game. Like, yes, the main takeaway that most people are going to have is like, oh my God, the Broncos only scored 13 points. Their offense stinks. Well, I don't think their offense stinks, but it's almost this like complete willingness to just throw away their defensive performance. And I know it's Justin Fields, and Justin Fields did not play well, and we'll break that down. But let's quantify this for a second. The Jets had 82 yards of offense. Like, you got to realize, against any NFL opponent, that is elite territory. And that's coming after a week where they beat up the Eagles offense, especially in the second half of that game. And the only reason the Jets scored 11 points in this game, you guys, is because of 2 long kick returns that effectively got them in field goal range. You have a safety from a holding call against the Broncos offense. Pretty fluky play. And then you have the forced fumble from the Jets early in the game. Gives the Jets field goal position. The Jets didn't really have any drives. Again, 82 yards. They had a net negative 11 passing yards in this game. So this wasn't just a great defensive performance. This is like elite defense. So you don't need a ton from this offense for them to win games like this, just as we saw against the Eagles. But we're a week away from this offense finding enough answers against the Eagles in Philadelphia to win that game. So I'm not like panicking about the Broncos. I just don't really like the game plan. And obviously, like, this defense is just so incredibly complete. The secondary played outstanding. They didn't give Fields any easy looks early in his progressions. You had Nick Bonito gets another just huge sack with 3.5 minutes to go in this game, just showing off his first step. Just remarkable team defense and just a bunch of individual players that are just really good on this defense. And Vance Joseph continues to do such a brilliant job. I wonder if Vance is going to get head coach interviews. It feels like that ship maybe has sailed for him, and maybe he's happy where he's at, but he's earned the interviews at least. But yeah, we got to talk about the Jets and Justin Fields. I mean, it's over, man. It's been over. Week 1 was kind of a peak, perk up, interesting moment where he played well week 1 against the Steelers, his former team, but he gets hurt and he's been horrible since. It's like watching rookie Justin Fields too. That's what's frustrating, is of all the off seasons talking about his improved mechanics and the improvements he's made as a passer. We're still here 5 or 6 years into his career. And this, you could have told me this was the first start of his career, where his nickname from here moving on, and I've said this off the channel. I don't know that I've said it on the channel, but he's got an elite nickname, man. And I'm proud to say that I thought of this one. I haven't heard anyone else say this, but it's Justin can't see the fields. It's a perfect description of his issues as a quarterback. It's like Tua turned the ball over. Those two are like elite nicknames, man. But that's Justin Fields' problem, man. If he doesn't have a clean pocket and a wide open receiver, like, he needs that perfectly clear picture to pull the trigger. And that's how you get all these sacks. It's him holding the ball. It's him not throwing with the anticipation. It's everything we've been critical of Fields for years and years and years, all back on display here with the Jets. So many dropbacks where you can see that dig route at the second levels coming open, or even just these speed outs where, like, yeah, the pressure's getting in. You're facing a great pass rush and a 5-6 man rush, and a lot of Fields truthers are going to just blame the offensive line. But no, this is the job of an NFL quarterback. When you are facing a 5 or 6 man rush, you have to step into the pressure and get the ball out. You can't just hold on to the ball and play hero ball all the time. And that's what Fields tries to do. And there's so many dropbacks in this game where you see that, especially though with the game on the line. The Jets defense played great in this game, taking away all those runs and screens and jet sweeps and forcing the Broncos offense off the field. They get that forced fumble early in the game. Shout out Jarvis Brownlee. Great trade to bring him in as a backup corner. Maybe even a starting corner. I don't know. But on a day where the Jets defense played great and you're in you have a chance with 3 minutes to go, down by 2 points, you just need like 20 yards to get yourself in field goal range and win this game. And there's a sequence of plays with, at that point in the game, they're on about the 50-yard line. I wrote it down, actually. It's 1st and 10 on Denver's 47-yard line, down 2 points with 2 minutes to go. So, first down, the Broncos blitz, just as we were describing. You have a speed out that is open. It's one-on-one coverage. Want to say, I can't say if it was Garrett Wilson or not. I think it was. I know Garrett Wilson got injured like super late in this game, but I'm pretty sure it was Garrett Wilson. But there's a speed out. Don't quote me on it being Garrett Wilson, but it's right as a part of his progression. It's right where his head goes at the snap. But instead of just leading his receiver to the outside where he had a step, it was NFL open. You throw an accurate pass on time to the outside shoulder. You get 6-7 yards out of it. There it is. There's the 6-7. We can't have a video without it. I still have absolutely no idea what it means and what the kids are getting so excited about it for. But anyway, if he just gets that ball out, you end up with a 2nd and 4 roughly in field goal range, right around the 40-yard line, and in a position where the Jets can just run the ball a few times and attempt a game-winning 50-yard field goal. Hopefully you get a couple yards on the ground and milk the clock down, and that's it. But because he holds it, he takes a sack. So not only do you not get the yards, but you lose 5 yards. Running the ball no longer an option. I didn't write down what happened on second down, but it was an incomplete pass. I think that was a play where there wasn't much there, so that's fine. But then there's the 3rd and 8 right after that. It was just he throws a short pass after that. So he gets to 3rd and 8. And then yet again, it is Garrett Wilson wide open towards the sideline. And Fields is just so late on this pass that the defensive back is brought back into coverage, and Garrett Wilson can't make the contested catch because it's so late. The DB makes a break, pulls the trigger, breaks up the pass, and you end up in 4th down. And that was where the Broncos just had Fields bottled up. The receivers weren't open. Fields gets sacked. Great play by the defense, but there were 2 throws there, whether it was the 1st down or the 3rd and 8, that were easy NFL throws to be made, and Fields just can't execute it. The easiest of quick passes. This game reminded me, this won't resonate for everybody, but Joe Webb was a wide receiver that played a little quarterback for the Vikings back in this was 15 years ago. And he ended up having to start a playoff game because I think it was Christian Ponder got hurt. I think that was the AP MVP season. But this reminded me of the Joe Webb playoff game where it was that's not a quarterback. That's an athlete playing, taking snaps. That's what this game felt like with Justin Fields. And we're 6 years into his career, and he's getting paid $40 million to be a QB. So I think they got to go to Tyrod Taylor because you're at least building something. Like, the defense played well this week. You're at least trying to build something here. You can't just keep trotting Fields out there. You're giving nobody a chance. Garrett Wilson, I think, is starting to get frustrated. And Fields is his guy, too. That says a lot. So it's been a waste of $40 million for the New York Jets, to say the least, as they fall to 0-6. But let's go to the Patriots-Saints game next. Patriots win this one 25-19 in a day where the Patriots offense was electric, dude. They had a couple of plays waved off for penalties in this game. There was a offensive pass interference, a very soft offensive pass interference, the type of one that, on one hand, I'm happier that they're calling it more this year because I've always said they should call offensive pass interference more, but this wasn't an example of that. Yes, Diggs extends, but he already had the separation. He's just doing what any wide receiver is supposed to do there and stick his hand out there. There was no push, really. So that was a bummer, a dime from Drake May that comes off the board, and I'm pretty sure they ended up punting after that. And then there was a scramble drill touchdown to Demario Douglas that was this awesome 60-yard touchdown that they called back for. Sometimes it's hard when you're watching the condensed version to get the actual penalty call, but it was either offensive pass interference from somebody or illegal formation or something. But there was 2 calls that were just unfortunate that took 2 major plays off the board for New England. But they had whatever they wanted through the air against the Saints. Drake May, I thought he was crazy against the Bills. He might have been even more impressive in this one. He is on a skyrocket trajectory. Doing everything, man. It's the structure throws, the accuracy. It seems to be getting better with Drake May. I know, they've been really working on his footwork, and that was something in college that was a little bit more sporadic. If there was a key knock on Drake May, it was that you want to see him improve his accuracy, and I think we're seeing those improvements. But some of the play extension stuff, not just, we know he can scramble and make throws on the run. He did it 7 times against the Bills last week. But there was a couple plays where he steps up in the face of pressure and in the corner of his eye, sees a guy flash open. And the way he's able to just flick the ball right on the money in some of these plays, it's just so impressive. So it just can't be understated. I know, Vrabel's in, and they're hitting a lot of green lights with a lot of other aspects about this team. But the biggest deal is that Drake May he's playing one of the best quarterbacks in the league this year. And on top of that, I'm feeling much better about his weapons as well, which was a major question coming in. We didn't know how well Diggs was going to play. And as we've talked about that, like, he's been good. Was more quiet in this game. I mean, wouldn't have been quiet if the offensive pass interference didn't come off the board. But like, Keyshawn Boutte has really settled in as like a nice wide receiver too that can make some tough catches. He's an interesting guy, obviously. Like, once upon a time was like a way too early first round mock draft kind of guy, high recruit that had some immaturity concerns at LSU, but you've heard none of that in New England. It seems that he has grown up and just settled in as like a nice wide receiver too. Like, I like what he is. I'm not trying to go too crazy with Keyshawn Boutte. I don't think he creates like crazy separation, and he's probably not as athletic as you probably would have thought like early in his LSU days. He's a different type of wide receiver than what I remember when he was getting hype early at LSU, but he's like making tough catches, and he's like a good glue guy for this team. And he had a tough touchdown catch in this game, kind of fighting with Kool-Aid McKinstry. And then he catches a big back shoulder clutch down the sideline, 3rd and 9 conversion play in this game. This was a close game, 25-19. Patriots trying to milk out the rest of the clock, and Drake May puts it right on his back shoulder. But like, that's the high IQ, like physical Keyshawn Boutte play. I like that. And Demario Douglas was sick in this game, dude. He had what should have been 2 deep touchdowns. One of them was called off the board, as we described. But he runs a route for the first touchdown in this game. I mean, this route was with the best of them, man. Like, and maybe Stephon Diggs coached him up on this one. But Douglas has always been a very good route runner, but he snaps off a corner post route where he fakes to the corner. It's cover 3. So he's carrying the outside corner from his side. And then he's got Jonas Sanker, the rookie safety, unfortunately got beat on this one too. It's with the single high coverage. And Douglas fakes the corner route, draws both the outside corner to stay outside, and forces Sanker to kind of hesitate and not be prepared to cut off the post move on the route, where he comes wide open, like 50 yards down the field, and Drake May just pins it on him. He shuffles his way into the end zone. Just awesome play. So this was all about the Patriots offense. I didn't have too many takeaways from the Patriots defense from this week, but obviously they did enough in this one against the Saints. Now let's try to have our weekly conversation about the New Orleans Saints. I think this was a continuation of their season. I do think this is best case scenario for the Saints. You continue to look competitive. You keep finding aspects of this team that you can build off deep into the season and into next year, but you lose and you get the draft pick. And I think it's a win-win scenario for the Saints. And like, they were competitive in this game. They got some help from those big plays coming off the board. The main thing that stood out to me in this game was their run defense was actually really good. Unfortunately, it kind of came at the cost of their pass defense being horrible in this one. So take it with a grain of salt, but they just shut down the Patriots run game that, was not good coming in. But the Saints run defense has been solid this year. They were 18th in run defense DVOA heading into this game. After this one, they just climbed to 9th. So they're a top 10 run defense in the league right now through 6 weeks. And they got a lot of different contributors. Like, I really like these linebackers. Their edge rushers are outstanding against the run. We knew that, like Cam Jordan and Carl Granderson, really good. Chase Young's been good against the run this year too. They're not Colin Sanders, going to get, goodness, it was a revenge game for him in this one. The defensive tackle, his name's escaping me, but the 7th round pick they gave to New England for Godshaw. He's been good. So like, they've got a bunch of different contributors up front. And, that's never been a strong suit of Brandon Staley's defense. I pegged them as being one of the worst run defenses in the league this year, and they haven't been. So that's been a refreshing sight for them, and it's helping them stay around in these games. Rattler continues to play well. He continues to look like a starting quarterback. We're just kind of in evaluation mode on Spencer Rattler. We're heading towards having to have a conversation about him, but we're just kind of collecting tape and letting him show what he's got and get better every week. It's the second week in a row where he's hit just a dime of a deep shot, and they came out early. Love them coming out, chucking a deep ball to Chris Olave out the gate. They're getting a little bit more comfortable and aggressive with their passing game as opposed to the first few weeks. It felt really bottled up. So yeah, Saints are doing some good stuff. A 25-19 loss is nothing I think Saints fans should be complaining about with what we knew about them coming into the year. All right, let's go to Pittsburgh with the Steelers dominating the Cleveland Browns, especially into the second half of this game. This was a close one. I think it was about 6-6 right around halftime. Browns tried to fight and keep this one close, but Pittsburgh pulls away the more and more opportunities they got. But the thing is working in Pittsburgh. Aaron Rodgers has come in, and the image for this Steelers team, this is exactly what you could have hoped for. Now, they haven't had a tough schedule to really prove that they're more than just a good football team, right? They're going to have those opportunities down the stretch. They play the Packers in a couple weeks in what will be such a fun battle between Rodgers and the Packers. But at least for now, like, and I know they went into New England and won, and Steelers fans will point to that one. That one, like, you still have to watch the tape. And in that one, it was like, well, New England actually outplayed them in that game. It's just they kept fumbling the football. So that one's kind of tough for me, if I'm being realistic about it. And look, I think Steelers fans think I hate them right now. Anybody that's been around this channel knows I will gas up an Aaron Rodgers-led football team as quickly as I feel it's necessary. I'm just not quite there yet. It feels like we're still in the preseason for the Steelers. But they were impressive in this game. I mean, especially the defense. I know it's the Browns, but they were suffocating in this game. The secondary played well, I thought, outside of a couple intermediate throws opening up, which is still kind of the hole in their defense. But they quietly, like, they were out there without their first-round pick in Harmon, and Alex Highsmith missed some time. Well, those guys were back in this game, and every single snap, that pocket was just compressing. Every single snap. And, they're a really dangerous defense because Jalen Ramsey's playing well. Darius Slay has done his job. I think Porter is still out, right? Like, there is so much potential, especially, like, Peppers is on this team now. I would be excited to see if Peppers can make a bigger impact as a safety as they get more and more familiar with him. But really impressive outing for the defense across the board. And then offensively, like, Aaron Rodgers, he's looking more and more comfortable out there, man. And I love that I'm not even compelled to really rave about Rodgers or talk about how he's playing and how he's 4-1. Because it's not like he's been this, elite quarterback or what he used to be or anything like that. But he's been exactly what the Steelers could have hoped they were getting from him. Number one, off the field. Like, there's always so much talk about Rodgers, but from the second he signed with Pittsburgh, you got to think he's winning some people back. Like, he's staying out of politics. He's not making these crazy statements about ayahuasca and all this stuff. He's just, from the very beginning, he's been like, look, I just want to go on the right note. Even like, for those that saw like the Terry Bradshaw comment, like when he signed there, Terry Bradshaw was like taking shots at Rodgers and his ayahuasca trips and all this stuff. And it was a training camp interview, and Rodgers was like, basically said like, Rodgers could have been pissed about that or taken a shot back at Terry, but he was like, look, I don't think you really, know me, and I would love to like get to know you and like go out to dinner with you, Terry, because I'm here in Pittsburgh. Like, you're obviously like an icon of this organization. He's like, I feel like we would actually get along. He's like, I respect you. So he just basically, I don't know if Terry followed up with that or how that relationship's going, but it was an impressive moment from Rodgers where it was just like even keel, like cool, calm, like teammates loving him. The off-field stuff, like, he just fits in Pittsburgh. It feels right. And I think he's showing some mental maturity late in his football career. But as a on the field, like, he's getting more and more comfortable within this offense. And, he's making a few big throws every week. This week, A couple throws on the run were really nice. He hits the touchdown to DK Metcalf. He's in a spot where he doesn't have to be a great quarterback. He just has to make a few throws, protect the football, and that's about it. And he's doing it, man. It's really working. And I think his pairing with Arthur Smith as well was something that was brought into question. Was were they going to find the right balance of, Rodgers wants to run his offense and all that stuff, and that obviously leaked into the Jets and all that. I really do think Rodgers looked at what happened with the Jets and he's like, you know what? I really don't have any interest at this point in having a say in the personnel or the play calling. Like, surely on third downs and stuff, he's voicing like what types of throws he wants, what types of routes he wants. Of course, like every quarterback is going to have that on third downs, but he's not like changing the play or like, he's leaning into the scheme and the identity of this team. It's just, everything's making sense with the Steelers team. I'm just excited to see them take on some more real opponents, because in this one, the Browns were clearly an inferior opponent, but the Browns also were just shooting themselves in the foot in this game too, in classic Browns fashion. Multiple drives were killed by just like procedural penalties. They had it was 9-3 Steelers in the third quarter, and the Steelers were about to punt, and the Browns have a roughing the kicker penalty. And that was when the floodgates open up. Two or three plays later, the Steelers get a couple big plays. They're on the board. And then the next possession, it's 16-3, and they get another drive killed by back-to-back drops. And it's just like, yeah, Brown's going to Brown, man. Like, the more things change, the more things stay the same, I guess. But, not a good day for the Cleveland Browns after looking more competent the last couple weeks. I don't know why they, in what was a close game, I don't know why they leaned so far away from Quinshon Judkins. Like, there's multiple drives late in this game where it's still close and they're coming out throwing when it's not like they were having success doing so. Judkins only had 12 carries in this game. He's been the best player on that offense. I disagree with the offensive approach from Stefanski. The defense was fine, but the floodgates just opened up late, kind of like the Ravens game, just the Steelers offense isn't as good. The last note I have here is that I do think, going back to the Steelers for a second, Arthur Smith, I thought, called a great game. Number one, coming right out the gate, heavy personnel. They go play action and they get Darnell Washington wide open for Rodgers to hit. And it was just like kind of setting the tone early. Like, if you think we're just going to run into a brick wall, it's not going to happen. Like, you're going to have to respect our play action game. And all day, they did a really good job taking away Myles Garrett. Like, that's the best thing you can ask of an offensive coordinator, is don't come out of the game and feel like Myles Garrett killed you. And you didn't even really notice Myles Garrett too much in this game, honestly, because not any fault of Garrett, but because when they did drop back, they made sure they had double teams on him, and they ran countless bootlegs away from him. Like, I don't know, 6-7 bootlegs in this game where it was just Rodgers rolling right, never left. So I thought they had a great game plan to take Garrett away. And if you can take Garrett away against this Browns defense that traded away one of their better players from this year in Greg Newsome. Not sure I love that trade for Cleveland. Newsome, I feel like, was turning a corner. I guess they just couldn't really afford him, thanks to Sean Watson. But Tyson Campbell was more bad than good in this game out there. But yeah, Cleveland loses. Steelers climb to 4-1. Probably going to be all over the Steelers, I think, on Thursday Night Football here, to be honest. I think they look good. They just need an opportunity to prove themselves. All right, speaking of Aaron Rodgers, let's talk about the Packers-Bengals game. Speaking of the Bengals as well, who play on Thursday Night Football, so a little synergy between these two teams back-to-back here. But Packers win this one 27-18 on a day where they really were moving the ball all over the Bengals defense. They stalled a couple times early. They have to settle for a field goal on, I believe that was their first drive. And then they have their second drive. They're driving all the way down into Bengals territory. And Love kind of, an aggressive decision, rolling out on 3rd and 5, tries to kind of put it on the receiver's back shoulder, ball gets deflected up in the air, an interceptable, kind of, you probably don't want to make that throw, but at the same time, it's like, well, you just settle for a field goal. You're trying to get points. There was a little bit of misfortune that the ball ended up getting picked, but a bad decision by Love. So like early on, they were moving the ball, but stalled a little bit. And then things really got rolling for the offense after the first couple drives. And I thought Jordan Love was fantastic in this game outside of that one throw, which when you stack it up against the rest of his day, you don't even really think about the interception. I mean, he's playing really good ball, dude. Like just in this game and over the season, I think his accuracy outside of, there's like two throws that really come to mind early in the season. Like Matthew Golden should have had a lot more and Jordan Love missed a couple throws early in the season, but especially the last few weeks, like he's moving really well. I feel like he's stepping into his throws more often, which has been a common criticism. He's hitting the mark. And it's also a reminder, like he played all of last year with that knee injury. He looks really athletic right now. The way that he's extending plays, he is getting multiple big scrambles every week, and he's been more willing to run this year, obviously feeling healthy. And it's been big for him. So I think that's adding to, obviously, just the ability to extend plays, but his comfort level. He made multiple big throws in this game. He's got the go ball to Golden down the left sideline. When the Bengals were trying to roar back in this game, the Packers were able to answer both times. One drive was primarily due to the run game, but the second time, Jordan Love's got a 3rd and 8, and he extends the play rolling left, and he hits Matthew Golden, 15 plus yards down the field on the money. And those are the types of throws that Jordan Love has frustrated you at times, where it's like he did everything right until the throw that was 2 yards behind him or landed at the receiver's feet. Like, no, he made the throw. So I think him playing really well is a huge, huge deal for the Packers, obviously, with the quarterback playing that well. Josh Jacobs was also insane in this game. So the offense is looking really, really good. And they're getting healthier too. Like you've got the offensive line getting healthier. It's great to see Zach Tom back out there. Christian Watson is nearing this, they're hyping this up as like a miraculous recovery. I'm excited to see him get back out there. He was extraordinary before he went down last year. That could be, I don't think you can undersell how much that kind of opened things up for the run game and the vertical passing game. And they've discovered Matthew Golden. Like Matthew Golden's passed the eye test this whole time, but they haven't gotten him involved. And I think they should get him even more involved. Less Savion Williams jet sweeps and a few less carries, maybe get a little bit less conservative with the offense. Like lean into the idea that you have this dynamic potential number 1 wide receiver. Like Golden is doing everything right now when his number is called. So yeah, like a lot of green lights for this offense. At the same time though, like the defense is showing vulnerability. Obviously, like the first 3 weeks, this looked like this transformative championship caliber defense. Then you get the Cowboys game where they play poor. They give up 40 points in a tie. And this week, I'll stick with that. They've shown defensive vulnerabilities. They're still going to get after it up front. And Devontae Wyatt was out in this game. They missed that interior presence for sure. But like the Cowboys and Bengals have shown the formula to beating this team. It is double team, triple team Micah Parsons if you need to. And that is especially where I think not having Devontae Wyatt, who I think has been their best one-on-one pass rush winner this season, outside of Parsons, obviously. But put an extra body on Parsons and get the ball out there and force these cornerbacks to make plays, because they're really struggling to do that. Keyshawn Nixon's had some good moments, but generally speaking, they play this kind of off-zone coverage, and these DBs have had a hard time like getting into position to make plays on the ball. So if you, especially like the Bengals, and I said this coming in, like this should be the game plan, just challenge this defense with quick outs and comebackers and go balls, and you're gonna find some success. So I do think having T. Higgins and Jamar Chase gives you a specific advantage in this game that a lot of teams don't have, even if it is Joe Flacco on a short week, and the Bengals and their offensive line and stuff. So not every team is going to be able to exploit that. But the Bengals eventually were. And, we can kind of bridge that by wrapping up this conversation on the Packers and talking about how the Bengals did in this game. But it blew my mind that wasn't the game plan from the very beginning. Because I said it, little old YouTuber me, sat here on this channel on Friday and was like, this should be the game plan. This could work. And yet Zach Taylor, NFL head coach, comes out after trading for Joe Flacco, who to me the idea would be a quarterback that can hit the top of his drop, throw a good ball to a great wide receiver. They come out for the first 20 minutes in this game, and you would have thought this was like a college program whose starting quarterback goes down, and they have to go to the true freshman who can't do anything. Like the first 20 minutes of this game, it was run, screen, quick pass, punt. It was that type of game plan. And it's like, really? Zach Taylor? Like, look, your season's not over. Like, they showed they could move the ball in the second half of this game. If they came out and actually understood going into this game what it was going to take to win it, instead of just wasting 20 minutes of the game, they might have had a chance. I don't know that they would have won this game. The Packers kept finding answers as the game went on with their offense. The Packers offense, like I said, was playing really well in this game, but you at least would have had a chance. And it took until about 4 minutes left in the second quarter until eventually they had to change the game plan and just say, all right, we're gonna just get the ball out and challenge these corners. And it worked. Jamar Chase started to eat. T. Higgins started to eat. Surprise, surprise. So, look, Zach Taylor showed no inkling of an understanding of how to assess his own team's strengths and how to assess his opponent's weaknesses. You look at this Packers team, there's one clear flaw. It is the cornerback room. And the Bengals' one clear strength is your wide receiver room. And you waste 20 minutes hardly using your wide receivers? I'm sorry, Zach Taylor. That is fucking stupid. So, had to rant about Zach Taylor because he was a core reason why the Bengals lost this game. Because full credit to Joe Flacco, frankly. I was impressed by Flacco in this game, dude. It's been a while since I have actually, watched Joe Flacco and be like, wow, he's playing well. Like, it was early in that Cleveland run where I was like, dang, he's slinging it and making some plays. Eventually, things fell off in that season, but I wasn't really moved by him with the Colts. Certainly wasn't moved by him with the Browns. This game was like, dang, man. Like, for a guy that just got here this week, he didn't make any mistakes. The ball was on time. It was accurate with velocity. He was even moving in the pocket. Was that the touchdown? He kind of steps up, eludes a sack, and makes a tight window throw. It was like, Jesus, man, he played really well in this game. So that's caught my attention that the Bengals might be a little bit more frisky and able to actually lean into Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Hopefully that is the game plan moving forward, is, to challenge players with your $80 million wide receiver duo. And then my other point on the Bengals is, generally speaking, the defense got ran over, as you kind of expect from this team against the Packers. But you have to talk about DJ Turner in this game, dude. Like, I mentioned how the Packers' drives were stalling early in this game. DJ Turner was a core reason for that. He had as dominant of a cornerback game as you will ever see. He was targeted, let's see, I wrote it down in my notes here. He was targeted 8 times in this game. So the Packers were going at him. And he deflected 4 of those passes, allowing just 3 receptions for 22 yards. And that, he kills a drive on a 3rd down with a tough pass breakup on Romeo Doubs. He was all over these receivers. He had a PFF coverage grade of 91.6 in this game. And the thing is, he's been good this year. This was his best game of the year, but he's been good this year. And he was good last year when he was out there. 2nd round pick in, 3 years ago, ton of speed, Michigan guy. Whatever happens with the Bengals moving forward, if he's just like a blue chip breakout cornerback like piece, I mean, that's a huge deal. Like that's been the main issue with the Bengals is they just have not hit on these draft picks. But if DJ Turner is really figuring out, and it seems like he has to me, at least there's a positive takeaway for you Bengals fans. But this was a fun game to watch. We'll get to see the Bengals here in just a day here. And, for the Packers, I don't want to get too far into like week 6 internet banter, but I get the sense that a lot of people think they're overrated right now because the defense isn't playing quite as well as they did early in the season. And I think a lot of people look at the tie as a loss. And it's like, well, look, they did still, would you rather won that game? Yeah, absolutely. But like they did still score 40 points on the road in that game. And that tie is the reason the Packers are first place in the NFC North and have they're fourth in the entire NFL in the overall standings. And they're getting healthier, as we mentioned, like figuring things out with Matthew Golden. I think the Packers are in a really good spot for whatever it's worth. But let's go ahead and move on to the Colts-Cardinals game. Thrilling game, man. Back and forth battle, offensive game. Colts win this one 31-27 as they get they totally get a stop, backed up against their own end zone with the game on the line. But it was their offense that ultimately was the reason they won this game. And for the most part, man, the Colts are almost becoming boring to talk about because they've been such a machine for all the same reasons every week. Like it reminds me, they've become boring. And I should say they've become boring to talk about for all the right reasons. Like this reminds me of what we've said about the Bills offense for a long time before the last couple of weeks, where they're just the same every week. Like they know exactly who they are offensively. They've got a great play caller and everything is just kind of clicking into place and working. And I'll continue to hold that this just might be the best offensive infrastructure in the entire league outside of maybe Philadelphia. Especially like Minnesota having some O-line issues and San Francisco having all those weapons hurt. I think the Colts have a strong argument for at least top 3 in terms of best offensive infrastructure, but it's the same thing every week. Like the offensive line was great again this week. Jonathan Taylor was great again this week. I mean, he looks all the way back to being that top 2 or 3 running back in the league. These wide receivers are awesome. It's someone new every week, but they can all step up at any given moment. Another big Josh Downs week this week. He's become 3rd and downs for this Colts team. They get Alec Pierce back this week. One of the, at this point, perennially underrated players. I think he's passed the eye test for a couple years now, and nobody wants to talk about Alec Pierce, but he made an awesome catch in a big spot in this game. I will say this was, I think, Daniel Jones's worst game. If there's any fear in the back of your mind that Daniel Jones regression is coming at some point, this game probably didn't make you feel any better about it. He has a pick rolling left that was kind of a Daniel Jonesy, like lack of spatial awareness type of play. It's kind of been a criticism of him over the years. It's just kind of that overall game awareness and spatial recognition. Like he's rolling left, the linebacker's rolling with him, kind of trying to play that 2-man game where is Jones going to scramble or is the guy behind him or is he going to throw to the crossing route behind him? And Mac Wilson played it perfectly, kind of played it half and half and waited till Jones threw it and he jumped up and picked it. But it's not like it was that hard of a play given the throw. So like just not a great play from Daniel Jones. That was costly and he totally got away. Like there is so easily a narrative in this game where Daniel Jones threw a back-breaking second interception late in this game, and it cost them this game. But Budda Baker just dropped it. It was a bad read. Budda Baker jumped it, and he just dropped it. Very easily could have won this game for the Cardinals. So Jones has been super impressive this year, but that is what I saw from him this week. But he made a bunch of good plays and good throws, playing within the structure of this offense, on top of the picks as well, of course. But the defense has definitely shown when Charvarius Ward is out that they have a lot of questions in the secondary, and you can attack this team. And That's exactly what the Cardinals did. They challenged the secondary, and these Cardinals receivers made a bunch of plays, as I'll discuss. But overall, the defense bunkered down at the end when it mattered most, and they get the stop in the end. But the Colts win because of their offensive production, and they climb to 5-1. Just keep rolling. But yeah, the Cardinals, they're heartbreak city right now, dude. Like, they have lost now 4 straight one-score games by a combined score of 9 points. Let that sink in. And we know the heartbreak from last week, but it has been 4 straight heartbreaking defeats. All of them have been decided in like the last 30 seconds or so. Like, Cardinals fans, you guys have it bad. I think the 2 fan bases that have it worse this year are in the NFC West. I think Niners and Cardinals. Ravens, we'll see if they can turn their season around or not. But, yeah, just tough, man. But it was a good effort by this Cardinals team to try their absolute living best to rekindle their season, man. Like, this was one of those fork in the road moments where you win this game, you get back to 3-3. If that happens, you can kind of shake off one of those losses and get things back on track. But in this one with the backup quarterback, Jacoby Brissett, Marvin Harrison goes down about halfway through this game with a concussion. Both your starting running backs are out. So this is as good of an effort as you could ask for from the Cardinals offense. And, Jacoby Brissett played really well, as we know he can, within a Drew Petzing offense. You can go back to his tape in Cleveland in 2023, where he played like a top 20 QB or so that season. So not a huge surprise to see him play well within this system. I don't think this means their offense is better with Jacoby. Like, the Colts obviously had their issues with their secondary, but also the main thing with Kyler is these receivers have been letting him down. Anybody that's watched the Cardinals offense genuinely can tell you that. Like, Kyler's actually playing pretty well this year, but there's been so many big drops and failed contested catch opportunities and big moments. Well, in this game, the Cardinals receivers were 6 of 8 on contested catches. So yes, Jacoby was making the throws, but they aren't throws that I don't think Kyler can't make. And, the receivers were making the plays as well. But unfortunately, they couldn't make enough plays to keep pace with the Colts in this one. Honestly, like, that Budda Baker drop pick, it's huge. Like, that could have rekindled this team's season. And I don't want to bang on Budda Baker, but that one really hurts. I mean, you're talking about, I don't know how far I want to go down this path, because I really like Budda Baker, but his inability to create turnovers at the safety position is like, it's probably the difference in him being a Hall of Fame player or not, honestly. Like, he has to be the best safety of all time to only have 7 picks in 128 games. That's insane. Like, Kirby Joseph had 7 picks last year. There's a bunch of safeties that had 7 picks last year. We're talking about like 8 seasons in. Like, he's getting like a pick per year. And he's Budda Baker, who I love. Budda Baker. Like, that's as much negative as I want to say about him, because he's like the heartbeat of their defense. And I love his energy. I love his run defense. I like his man-to-man coverage, but it's just like his ball skills are so bad. And they were bad in the biggest of spots in this game. Like, makes a great read on the play, picks in his hand. That could have won this game for this team, and it didn't. So I don't want to bang on him, but that one really hurt. Like, when you're down to your backup quarterback, like you're down to your 3rd string, 4th string, 5th string running backs. Marvin Harrison is out. You're Budda Baker. You got to make that play, man. I'm sorry. So that one really hurts. And then, especially on a day where the defense, gave up 31 points, right? Like, the offense finally makes a mistake. You got to make them pay for it. But also, that red zone sequence is kind of the exact reason why you got to go back to Kyler. The ability to have a mobile threat down by the red zone is so critical. And they get down to the red zone and they can't punch it in. They go drop back passing game 3 times, and They weren't able to scheme guys open. Jacoby wasn't able to make the scramble. They didn't try to run, which I can't really blame them for it. But when Kyler's in there, think of all those creative runs down by the goal line that helped them convert down by the red zone. They just couldn't get it in at the end. And it's just a bummer to see them fall short, because this could have been a big moment for the Cardinals. And unfortunately now they fall to 2-4, and they got to go on a run. They got to really find a way to dig deep and rekindle their season, but it's not feeling super optimistic that that's going to happen. All right, we got our final two games here. These ones are going to be kind of speed round here, as you might expect. We got the Raiders-Titans game, and we have the Ravens-Rams game. So Raiders detonate the Titans, detonate Brian Callahan and Bill Callahan in this one. They win 20-10, but this one felt more like 20-3. I mean, this game was never close. Titans get a garbage time touchdown at the end, but Raiders defense stole the show in this one. They were swarming, man, which it's good to see. Like, it's the Titans, and I always get a laugh when people say, well, the Raiders played well. I can't take that away from them, but they did play the Titans. It's like, no, I will absolutely take it away from the Raiders. Like, this is the fucking Titans. Like, they suck ass. So, like, to me, it's take it with a grain of salt. The defense looked great. They were swarming. They finally got some contributions on the D-line from guys beyond Crosby, like Jonah Lualu. 4 pressures in this game, and he beats Kevin Zeitler on a spin move that was sick. Tyree Wilson showed up. Devin White as a blitzer showed up. So they got some contributions up front. They were flying around. They were ready to play. Like, they get credit, but they only get so much credit for doing it against the Titans. And Geno, generally speaking, played better in this game. They were moving the ball. Still no Brock Bowers. They did have like one more kind of weird interception later in this game, but it didn't end up mattering. Trey Tucker continues to just do a little bit of everything and look like, I don't know, Tyler Lockett in his prime. Like, is that a good comp for Tucker? Like, he's really turning into a complete player. I like what we see there. Maybe some good Tyler Lockett comps there with Pete Carroll as the head coach. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's the start of something for Las Vegas, but it's the Titans. We'll see moving forward. They play the Chiefs this week, so buckle up. As for the Titans, I'm not even going to talk about the game. They looked horrible. Cam Ward looked horrible in this game. He's got to play better. Sloppy fumbles, not getting the ball out. I hope Mike McCoy can sit down with him and find some plays that work for them. But yeah, Brian Callahan gets canned after this one. It had to happen, man. I mean, I don't know necessarily why I would stack him up in terms of like worst head coaches ever. There's been some pretty bad ones, and I don't want to let recency bias play in there, but let me frame it this way. Over his entire time here, what is the one thing that either A, actually got better from their team, or B, just tell me what the hell was the identity of his offense or his team or his locker room supposed to be? This was the most vanilla failed, like, we all knew from the eye test from the very get-go that he was not equipped to be the head coach. And this had to happen. It's not a surprise that he was the first head coach fired here. And then also, like, Bill Callahan's going to resign here. I don't want to pile on Bill Callahan because he's highly regarded as a legend in the coaching circles. But I'm sorry, like, he did not do a good job here. And I don't know if it was just kind of checking out because he's finally getting to coach with his son or what it is. But and I don't want to make assumptions, but the results speak for themselves. Like, he accomplished very little in his season and a half as the O-line coach here. It's been an absolute disaster. Every single player that signed here has played worse than where they came from, whether that's Lloyd Cushenberry or Kevin Zeitler this year or Dan Moore. Nobody developed outside of Peter Skoronski, who, I mean, Skoronski, he didn't strike me as someone that really needed too much coaching. I mean, his technique coming out of Northwestern was fantastic. He's developed, but outside of him, like J.C. Latham, he's been a little banged up, but he has really looked bad in the 2 games he's played at right tackle this year. That was Bill Callahan's guy. I'm not writing off J.C. Latham. I hope he can settle in, but I mean, seriously, like the biggest selling point on getting Brian Callahan was the fact that they were able to steal Bill Callahan, and he just didn't do a good job with this whole line. And it goes to the run game too. Like they didn't have an identity in the run game, which is always correlated to the offensive line coach. So the Callahans are out, much to the enjoyment of Titans fans. And on the plus side, I kind of like the vibes with Mike McCoy. We'll see where that goes. But they get a head start on contacting agents and starting to evaluate other coaches. Like they get to kind of get the wheels turning and hopefully can attract a top candidate this offseason, whether that's Joe Brady or whoever it might be. I mean, I would love for this to be the Mike McDaniel plus Brian Flores combo together with Flores as the head coach and McDaniel as the OC. I would love that here, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, last game here. Going to go very quick here. One of the more forgettable games of the season, Rams-Ravens. Rams win 17-3 in a game where the Ravens fought, man. Like I know there's a lot of people out for Harbaugh's job and Zach Orr right now. Look, Cooper Rush clearly was not it. I'll say that. They ended up going to Tyler Huntley late in this game. But Zach Orr's defense fought in this game. They did a way better job than I thought they would. They were good against the run. They get a couple key stops. They got a big strip sack in this game. And like this game was it 3-3 at half or like with a minute left in the first half? The defense fought, but unfortunately they couldn't stop turning the ball over, partially on Cooper Rush. Zay Flowers had a fumble in this game. You can't have that in a game like this against the Rams. All in all, like the effort was there. It's just the execution wasn't. And the Rams basically just showed up and collected a win. Like that's really what this one came down to. The Rams weren't sharp. The defense played great. They had an epic goal line stand from Jared Verse, but that was expected. Stafford and these receivers were just a little bit off all day. A couple throws to Devontae that just weren't on target from Stafford. Puka Nacua goes down pretty early in this game. I think that impacted their game plan. But, Stafford, push came to shove. He made enough throws. He had a beautiful throw to Kyron Williams down the field. Great catch by Kyron there. I mean, this is a forgettable game. The Rams were supposed to win this one, and they did. The Ravens kind of knew this game was going to be damn near impossible to win, and now hopefully they can get Lamar back, have the bye. Right, they're on bye week this week. I'm not making that up. I still think the Ravens can get back in the mix. The AFC is pretty weak this year. Like, let's look at the Ravens. Let's have some hopium for Ravens fans because it's, they're down bad right now. But let's wrap this up by just pulling up the Ravens schedule here. So they are on bye this week. They can get healthy. They can get Lamar fully 100% and get Roquan back. Even if Roquan hasn't been the best this year, like that's a key part of the defense. Get another week to like fully figure out this new safety room. Then after that, this is why it's not panic for the Ravens. You have at home the Chicago Bears. It's going to be a huge game. It's not going to be easy, but you're talking about Lamar Jackson at home against a pretty bad Bears defense. They will be favorites in that game. Then you go at Miami. So, all right, then you get back to 3-5. They have at Minnesota week 10. That might be their hardest remaining game. Well, there's a couple down the stretch, but yeah, at Minnesota week 10. So let's just say they lose that, though that's also very winnable. But let's say they go 2-1 out of those 3 games. How about that? That's pretty fair. So you're now 3-6. All right. You got at the Browns, you got the Jets, you got the Bengals. Okay, we're back to 6-6. That feels very much in play. Then you got Steelers at Bengals. let's say, I mean, you probably got to win those. Let's be honest. With your struggles early in the season, you got to buckle down. You either got to beat Pittsburgh or you got to win in Minnesota or whatever. But you get the point. This is not the hardest schedule. Up until week 16, they host the Patriots. Week 17, they visit the Packers. Week 18, they play the Steelers. But I do see this Ravens team being kind of like the Bengals were last year, where they're coming from behind in the standings, but teams around the league are looking around like, can you please knock the Ravens out? Like, we're not trying to be the 3 seed that has to host host Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens in the playoffs. So I do think they are gonna keep things interesting down the stretch here, but they got to execute, man. They got to execute. They got to protect the football better and start playing better defense, which I think, I mean, honestly, like, this game was the start of, like we saw last year, they make some adjustments and the defense got better. This game was the start of that with Zach Orr. So if the defense can settle down, this team can be okay. But that's all we got. Excellent show this week. Thank you guys so much for watching, for listening. Again, if you could please hit that like button on the way out. If you're still here and you have not done that, please do. And if you're an audio listener, if you could take a minute to leave a review, I'd really appreciate it. I will see you guys very soon for the preview show. Going to try to do a Thursday night recap podcast plus the Patreon mailbag. So if you are on Patreon and you want to get a mailbag question in, I will be answering those over the next few days. I will also see you guys on Patreon for the Vegas picks and predictions show, and just might have my first positional tier maker video this week. So we got a lot of stuff coming out. Very excited for the rest of the week and this weekend of football. But thank you guys so much for joining today, and we'll talk soon. Cheers.